Commerce Commission, October 25th, 2023. All right, so we'll start with a roll call.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call. Chair Grumbine,
Present?
Vice Chair House,
Not present?
Commissioner Butler,
Here.
Commissioner Dordan,
Here.
Commissioner Drury, Commissioner Insberg,
Here.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Present.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll go on to item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. So,
The public now?
all right.
Yeah, we do have one speaker slip for Izzy Savage and Cass Insberg, so you'll have 2 minutes at the podium.
All right.
Thank you. Greetings, HLC Chair Grumbine, Commissioners, staff, and community. I'm Cassandra Ensberg, here representing the Architectural Foundation of Santa Barbara and the Kids Draw Architecture Program, along with Izzy Savage and Molly Burns, who is the Executive Director of the foundation. And we're here to give you your annual gift of the 2024 Kids Draw Architecture calendars that are hot off the presses.
Nice.
And we hope you've enjoyed the 2023 calendar. Last spring, roughly 50 artists of all ages from 2 3/4 to 94 met at the El Presidio to sketch the beautiful adobe structure and the site, which you can see on the cover here, and also show to
Well, and
the
actually, if you could bring it up,
Oh,
we can do City TV.
to, let's
Screen.
see. Also, Commissioner Drury joined in, and we were delighted to have him.
All right, so City-
The calendar features sketches from that day, including for the first time a colored cover. It's a detailed drawing from inside of the chapel by 7-year-old Otto Faust.
nice job, Otto.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. The Kids Draw program was developed over 30 years ago as a way for designers and architects to come together and sketch alongside our youth to learn about architecture, design, and what makes our town unique and like no other. And Izzy will take it, have a few words.
Hello, everyone. Please enjoy these calendars every day as an inspiration and reminder of our rich cultural heritage. The calendars will be available for purchase at El Presidio Gift Shop, Chaucer's Books, the Book Den, the Museum of Art, and the Architectural Foundation office. They are great gifts, and your purchase helps support the program. Also, we want to welcome all to join us to celebrate our youth at the 2023 exhibit and reception at the Atchison House Gallery on Sunday, November 12th from 1 to 3 p.m. Thank you from the Architectural Foundation of Santa Barbara and the KDA team.
And here, also, just for fun, for more fun, this is the first calendar that was ever done. And on the front is this sketch, which is actually my stepson when he was 6 years old. And then on the back is a beautiful little picture at the De La Guerra Plaza, sitting on the lawn and drawing the buildings.
At least it's on historic record now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Yes, Commissioner Early.
I would just add to that presentation that this program was invented here in Santa Barbara by Commissioner Insberg and others, and has been replicated around the country as a great example to integrate kids with art and architecture.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're all welcome.
The- for be-
Spring, we'll be doing it, so you're all welcome to come join us.
We don't believe in kids drawing. Just kidding, for the record. I don't want a bunch of angry letters. Okay, thank you very much for that. Is there any other public comment?
We do have one other speaker slip for Jen Nell. If you could make your way up to the podium, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
No worries.
You got 2 name tags. A little cozy here. Good afternoon. Get along the table.
Oh, let's just make sure your mic's on. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
I'm Jim Cannell. I'm the owner of SEMA Corporation. I'm the largest property owner in downtown Santa Barbara. Our properties include the El Paseo, 1129 State, Victoria Court, 700 Block Estate, 500 Block Estate, and a lot of other properties along with the athletic club. HLC has been an integral part of what we've been doing in downtown Santa Barbara since I bought my first property in 1988. My first project was 500 Block of State Street, where I came to you folks, which are different now, and presented a property that was the old Salvation Army building, and my color scheme was a burnt orange. And it was approved by the Planning Commission and Historic. But when the colors went up, there was an outcry. Today, it's the second most photographed building in Santa Barbara. You allowed it to happen. We put up a clock, and it is what it is today. It's a 500 Block of State Street. So, even though I've had differences with you in the past, we've worked them out. And I think Santa Barbara is the better for it. You've been the guardians for the architectural integrity for many, many years. And I hope that that continues. But the way that the city council and what they are proposing now under Title 31 of this new ordinance strips you of your responsibility, which is against the charter of the city of Santa Barbara. And I find it very troubling that nobody is concerned about it. When I read it, it scares the hell out of me. You are the guardians of what makes Santa Barbara beautiful, and you are about to be stripped of your authority and your input against the charter. I am troubled that this is going to happen without any sort of outcry from members of the HLC. I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard any press. This is like a coup that's happening to take away authority, to give it all to city council and city staff. And if you haven't read it, you need to read it, because it is taking away a tremendous amount of what you've provided, and it's going to take it away for a long time. And I don't want to see it happen. So I look to every one of you as members of HLC to say, are you okay with this? Do you realize what is happening to your authority, to your contribution, now and in the future? Because in the future, it ain't going to happen. You'll just be a voice. You won't have any authority. So I'm concerned. I'm a concerned citizen, and I'm a concerned property owner, because the integrity of my properties are at the highest level of the city of Santa Barbara, without a doubt. And the degradation of the street that's happening with what's going on with city council's directions and what they're trying to accomplish takes away not only the architectural integrity of State Street, but it takes away the value of my properties. And it degrades the merchants and tenants that I have in these properties. You are guardians of our architecture, which the architecture is what creates Santa Barbara, the beauty of it, and makes it special. Don't give it up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't have any other speaker slips at this time, so I'm going to go ahead and move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom at this time, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. I'm not seeing any hands raised on Zoom, and we also did not receive any general written correspondence, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right. Okay, we'll go on to item B, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission meeting October 11th, 2023.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say to you and the rest of the commission, you can see we don't have a functioning screen over here. City TV is very much aware of it, and we're working on getting it fixed. It's kind of a specialty item, so forgive us, but we have the one behind us. I think there's going to be an interim solution to move that working one over to this wall, because that's the easier one for any kind of design review board to to view. So forgive us for the awkwardness for today's meeting, but we're only working with this one screen. And of course, when the applicants present using this laptop, it will all be on the monitors in front of you. So we can maybe turn this screen, but you'll have to look up this way to actually go through things.
So maybe we'll have volunteers just like grab it, you know.
right now.
Does that include the missing one here?
Yeah. Are we short
We'll
a
work on
monitor?
that.
Yeah. Limbic and I will be out of the loop a little bit as we stare at the desk.
It'll make for less
Again,
questions.
apologies.
Yeah. This is where paper comes in handy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, no. I was holding off on saying that. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so approval of the minutes. So any edits to the minutes?
So moved.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, let's get that. And then, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Butler? All right, so under edits, anything? Any edits?
Chair Grumbine?
Yes.
I did have a couple of things on item number 5 that I'd like to mention and see if anyone else agrees. Under item 5, number 3. It was my understanding that it wasn't necessarily less bright shades of white. I didn't think that was exactly what we said. I thought we said to tone it down and maybe that's okay. If you think it's all right that way, then I'll let it go. But,
Yeah,
Do you think that's
I
okay?
think it probably was said that way.
Okay.
I think the idea is make it not as bright. And-
Tone it
Yeah,
back.
and I think the applicant commented something about, like, there's 1,000, shades of white, gray, beige, whatever, in terms of, like, they'll look at keeping it, not having this bright white.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what the direction we gave.
okay. You thought that's close enough? Okay.
Or burnt orange. Is the, It was a different time, it was the 80s. Okay. Okay, any other
Let's see,
edits?
I'm trying to see it, but I can't.
Anyone?
Well, it was number 4, about the railing. Number 4. Maybe strike however, and just say wrought iron is suggested, given the proposed.
Yeah.
I know I'm
that
being
is a little
picky.
bit-
I
that is a little bit-
apologize.
It could be read both ways, so I think that you're right on that.
I
Railing
think we were
design does not need to-
deterring them from the glass and
Or
suggesting that they
suggested, yeah.
do the wrought iron, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Okay, and
Or
then
more.
number 7, and this is where Commissioner Lenvick and I were kind of having different opinions about the glass box element. So I was in favor of the glass box element as a glass box element without expression of structure at the corners. And as I remember, Commissioner Lenvick liked the idea of more expression of the structure at the corners. So how can we?
Maybe our direction was to study, not restudy, as in like scrap it, but to at least study another option. Maybe we can say, add something like, some commissioners felt that the glass box element was not successful, or something like that. That they know that it was only a partial, and that we were very clear about this being a split, because I was also part of the split, where some people were okay and some were not. So that way, it's in the context of study it, see if there's
So
a solution.
could we just strike out to add more expression on the corners and just say further study the glass box element?
Through the chair, I think it would be more appropriate to maybe say some commissioners, as you were saying, some commissioners feel that the glass box element was appropriate, or some commissioners did not feel the glass box element was appropriate.
Yeah,
something along
or
those
maybe
lines.
both. We can say some commissioners felt the glass box was appropriate, some commissioners felt that it should be changed.
Okay.
And that way, that they could go from there at least.
Yeah.
That's also in our mind, when we go to read back the comments at the next one, we'll know it was a split, it was a split decision. Some were in favor, some weren't, so they don't necessarily have to come up with something.
Okay, yeah, and,
Okay.
and then finally, under number 10, size, mass, bulk, and scale are acceptable?
Well,
versus appropriate.
Well, the findings have the word appropriate, I think.
yeah, I think that's where we were kind of
Okay.
keying it up for. Yeah.
All right. I just think
I think
these,
they're both.
these are very important,
No,
I
it's
hate
good.
to be nitpicky about, but, it's just so important to get the words right so that it helps the applicant
Yep.
and us
And us
moving
afterwards.
forward.
Totally.
So, yes, that was, those were my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarity. All right, any other edits? All right, with those changes, the maker and seconder, okay with those?
Yes. Yes.
All right, okay, roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Linvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Abstain.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Okay, on to approval of the, approval of the consent calendar for October 25th, 2020.
Motion to approve the calendar.
All right.
I haven't had it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, Commissioner Jordan, second. Okay, all right, so then under,
Yeah, there was one item on the State Street project, and we asked for 5-gallon containers, and we've modified that to read as 1-gallon containers.
okay, thank you. And then to staff.
Yes, I'll go through the motions, thank you. Item A was 1815 State Street, which received project design approval and final approval with the condition that landscaping on the State Street elevation be 5-gallon Carissa Tomlinson's 36-inch sorry, I'm getting this a little confused, 36 inches on the center, and then that was revised to be 1 gallon. And then 834 Santa Barbara Street received project design approval and final approval as submitted. 1303 State Street, number A, received project design approval and continue indefinitely to consent for final approval with the comment to return with complete details and a landscape plan. And then 1230 East De La Guerra Street received approval of review after final with the comments that the front bedroom window is not replacing the original and is an improvement, and the plans demonstrate substantial conformance to the plans that received project design approval.
All right. Anything else to add from Commissioner McClure, Vice Chair House? All right. Thank you both. And, okay, let's have a roll call vote.
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Drury, Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Linvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we're on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuous withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Mr. Chair, I
Commissioner
must
Doran.
depart at 5:45 today.
Okay, well, hopefully,
You think so?
hopefully we will get you out before then. All of us out. All right? Any other
Yeah,
announcements?
I have one, Chair Combine. I will not be here for the November 8th meeting.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this is a little bit secondary to HLC, but I do want to let you know that the staff hearing officer decision for 225 Equestrian, this is a mixed-use project on that one block of Equestrian by applicant Jeff Shelton. That the staff hearing officer decision was appealed to the Planning Commission, and so just an FYI on that. It once that decision is made, it will eventually come back to HLC at some point.
Okay. Thank you. Any other announcements, et cetera? All right, on to item E, subcommittee reports. So, actually, let me do a quick little preface, because then we'll roll into the State Street Advisory. Just to, we're gonna keep it at the reporting level, with very minimal questions, but at the reporting level, Commissioner Lenvik can weigh in on what recommendations are or whatever in terms of seeing it or that. So that it is okay to report back to us and give, some direction if you so choose, but we'll keep it to not a conversation so it doesn't have Brown Act implications. So in other words, you can say what you said in that email to me.
The advisory committee met on Monday for 4 hours, and it was a continuation of, in essence, of a prior meeting, which brought a lot of mobility questions and answers to us. And, pardon me, MIG and staff went back, and then they made a presentation on Monday. The entire presentation dealt with mobility issues, and there was something like 85 slides that were shown. I mean, it's just a massive amount of information regarding whether or not bikes are important, or people are important, or cars are important, or whatever. They're all important, obviously, but we're trying to design a promenade on State Street, and there obviously had to be some give and take. And that's basically what the staff came back to us with after 85 PowerPoint slides. And they're recommending a multimodal kind of use on the lower State Street area, and a use that would allow auto vehicles one way going north, along with bikes on the upper portion in the Art District. We've spent an awful lot of time with MIG and this project, and have not gotten to the point where we've started talking about design yet. And it's unfortunate. And Anthony made a good presentation on behalf of HLC, I believe.
Well, it was my own opinions, but as a member of HLC.
Yeah, and you all received a copy of those in writing, and if you have any time at all, I think it'd be worthwhile looking at the video of that 3 minutes of his talk, because it conveyed a real concern that he and probably HLC will have ultimately regarding what's proposed for the State Street Promenade. I have my own opinion, and I probably shouldn't voice it, but there's a lot of work yet. We don't know what date the next meeting will be on. I think it's December 3rd tentatively. And I'm not sure what we're going to see then either. They talk about us.
Sorry, is there a staff?
May I just want to clarify, it's tentative for December 11th.
Oh, 11th, pardon me, okay, December 11th. And I'm not sure what we're going to see then either. You know, we're there as a, quote, State Street Advisory Committee, and I'm not sure that we have yet come to the point where we've advised staff and the planners as to what they should be doing. Like yesterday, or Monday, we talked about what's good or bad about walking or not walking, you know, or what's good or bad about this area of State Street having cars or no cars. But we never got to the point of saying, let's vote, you know, and let's advise. It hasn't happened yet. Now, staff may disagree with me on that, and the attorney is saying, Mr. Lenvik, you are talking too much.
Did you say that?
That was a very, there was,
It's a
it
trained
must have been, yeah. You know, it must know Morse code with the eye blinking.
I'm through, and since I can't answer any questions, I'm done.
Yeah, well, I think that's the main,
item.
yeah, that's, as well, that's also on the next item, which, well, I'll cover the next item in the next item. But for this, yes, I think that was good in terms of reporting back to us so that we don't get into a discussion mode. So, okay, any other subcommittee reports?
Mr. Chair, only that the designation report is part of our agenda. Designations.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other reports? Okay, we will go on to item 1. This is a discussion item. This is for State Street interim operations. So staff will provide an overview of the commission's role in State Street interim operations and request that the commission establish a process for providing reports and recommendations on proposed regulations and vote to create a State Street interim subcommittee. Okay, so welcome. And so will there be a presentation to go through, or is it, okay, great. If you could introduce yourselves.
And does everybody have them on the monitors, or, okay.
Well, we would if we had them.
Yeah, we got them on there.
You're not going to hear. We purposely chose you to be in distress, yes.
This is,
Or paper, if they had paper.
this is part of the
Actually, I
staff's,
have, here, pass this down.
There we
I've got
go.
it. There you go.
this is part of the
Your
staff's
wish-
effort
Do you have
to
it landscaped?
diminish the authority of HLC.
Well, it starts with the monitor. Well, it started with the paper and now it's the monitors.
Soon there'll be a sandbox and they'll just draw stuff in it. All right.
Good afternoon, Chair Grumbine and committee members. My name is Sarah Clark. I am the city's downtown plaza and parking manager in the Public Works Department. And here with me today is Tess Harris, who is the State Street Master Planner. And so we're here today to talk about HLC's role in interim operations. And so the interim period being the period that we're in right now, basically, where we don't yet have an adopted master plan, but we have the desire of council and of the city to continue the State Street Promenade the way that it is currently composed. So I'm going to go through today and talk a little bit about what your role is going to be in that process, and then hopefully we'll come to the committee can come to an agreement about how specifically you'd like to engage that role. So on September 26th, the council adopted Title 31. And Title 31 is an ordinance that will essentially kind of replace or succeed the current economic recovery enhancement and transition ordinance, the RETO, which expires at the end of this year. In that this Title 31 continues or allows for the continued closure of the 500 through 1200 blocks of State Street to vehicle traffic. It allows for the continuation of the revised vehicle configuration on the 0 block of West Victoria, the 400 block of State Street, and the 1300 block of State Street. It also allows continued operation of the outdoor business facilities, the temporary facilities that have been placed on those streets and those blocks. And this ordinance will remain in effect until the State Street Master Plan is adopted or December 31st, 2026, whichever is earlier. So in this process, council expressed their desire, number one, to be much more involved in the interim operations of State Street and providing direction directly to staff and the city administrator for interim operations. And they also expressed a desire to have this commission be more involved in that process. And so the ordinance specifies, identifies two different ways in which the committee will be able to engage in this process. First of all, when the city administrator proposes any sort of new design regulations, or when the city council directs any sort of changes to design, this committee is going to have 60 days to review those proposed changes and provide a report and recommendations back to the city administrator. And the second way in which you can engage is that as part of City Council wanting to play a bigger role in the interim operations period, staff will be going to the full council once a month to provide an update on interim operations, on the pilot program, on any items on which council has given us direction or requested information at previous meetings. So during this monthly presentation, the chair of HLC is going to have some designated time to make presentations and recommendations directly to council regarding matters within their jurisdiction. So this is where it gets slightly confusing, and I'm hoping to elucidate it with charts. The goal today, like I said, is for this committee to decide and establish a process through which they prepare those report and recommendations, and also through which they agree on the comments that the chair is going to transmit to council. So the chart that I have here kind of shows what this process looks like, and admittedly, it's a little bit confusing. So, everything is going to kind of come from council in terms of the direction that the city administrator and therefore staff received as to actions to take or pilot programs, things like that, changes to make on the promenade. So we will make monthly updates to council. Council will advise from there, and if that direction involves, like I said, a change to regulations involving design or, other aesthetic elements of the promenade, then the city administrator via staff would take those proposals to this committee. And the committee has an opportunity to prepare a report and recommendations, which go back to the city administrator, and then we go back to council, and the cycle begins again. So the red arrows essentially represent kind of the flow of different recommendations and the flow of information to and from the HLC. So what we are recommending today, in addition to establishing this process, is that the HLC form a working group who can work directly with staff to provide advice prior to us bringing things to you. So for example, if city council were to say, we would like updated design guidelines, we could have a group to work with to formulate those before bringing them here, to hopefully make the meetings with the full board more productive and to come in with something that you might look more favorably upon, as opposed to us just trying to wing it. So that is one of our recommendations, and again, the other one is the request to establish a process for providing those formal reports and recommendations. So whether, again, you want to delegate that to the chair, delegate that to a committee if you want to, have that be a process that you go through here at the full board. But we would likely encourage you to have regular discussions of interim operations so that you can agree on comments to transmit through the chair to council. So I hope that makes sense, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and hopefully Dan or Table will step in if I have misstated anything.
All right. So is that all good and complete the presentation? All right. So with that, we will now open public comment for this item. Any member of the public in the room wishing to comment on this item, please fill out a speaker slip if you haven't already done so. And you'll have 2 minutes to comment.
This won't be quick. I mean, it's only fast. I look at something like that and I just shake my head. It's a lot of minutia, and this whole project is a lot of minutia. And what gets lost in the minutia is the reality of what facts and figures and the printed words say in a document. What they're saying and what is printed is not the same. You are basically making recommendations. You're not defining what is done. You are a recommendation body. That's what they want. Doesn't mean they have to follow. They are taking away your authority. Clear as this print. If you read Title 31, read it. Read all of the subsections. It defines what the city is trying to do, and it's basically to undermine HLC and put the responsibility to the city administrator and city council, of which neither one of them have any experience in planning, in development, in architecture, or business. It's like me wanting to be fly a spaceship. I have no information. I have no business being in a spaceship. These people should have no business making and defining a plan in the city of Santa Barbara that has the history and the architecture and the development of what it's gone through in the last 50, 60, 70, 100 years. It's being usurped. The printed word is the document, not what's being expressed here.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments by people or anyone else wishing to comment in the room? All right, do we have any virtual?
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll move to virtual. We do have one hand raised at this time for Mary Ellen Brooks, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the ability to speak, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mary Ellen Brooks. I'm president of Citizens Planning Association. I'm sorry that somebody couldn't go and attend the meeting today, but all of this came into us kind of at the last minute. So I'll just speak from some notes that I have from my board members. I'd say the gentleman who just spoke certainly encapsulates, our feelings about what we have been reading from this Title 31 right now. I do have notes from someone who has lots of experience in historic landmarks, Mary Louise Days, and she was asking about some of the discussions that were held with the State Street Advisory Committee in terms of districts. And she comments here, I'm confused about these districts, such as the Civic District, that could be called the El Paseo District. It already is, says Mary Louise Days, because it's in the city charter. So, and this design regulations are also set by ordinance and in the city charter. So her question is about Title 31. Will that eliminate everything that it is in the city charter? Okay, I also had a few notes from another board member. Does Title 31 exempt the city and state street master plan from Title 30 requirements of HLC approvals? What does the word consulted mean if they say HLC will be consulted? I was just very struck by the comment made by staff that, they hope that the HLC doesn't wing it. From our dealings over 60 years with HLC, the HLC does not wing anything. And we too are very concerned that what is being proposed will undermine the functioning of the Historic Landmark Committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
At this time, we don't have any other hands raised, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, so let's go to commissioners for questions. Yep, Commissioner
I have a
Lundberg.
question of the city attorney. Is there anything in Title 31 and in 6065? Is there anything in those two relevant ordinances that says someone is not required to get approval of HLC?
Chair Grumbine, Commissioner Limvick, I'm going to let Assistant City Attorney Dan Henschke, who was more knowledgeable about the ordinance, speak to that question.
Okay, so the city attorney doesn't have an,
He does.
yeah, he has a position on this. Go ahead.
Honorable Chair, members of the commission, I'm Dan Henschke, Assistant City Attorney. I'm the one who's responsible for writing Title 31, presenting it to council. There's a gross misunderstanding about what Title 31 does and doesn't do. In direct answer to your question, Commissioner Lenvick, it does not affect the HLC's design review authority over State Street with regard to projects that come to State Street now. What it does is it affects the ability of this commission and of other commissions to review the outdoor business facilities that are located within the promenade. That is what Chapter 31.30 deals with. It's the outdoor business facilities within the promenade. And those have been permitted under ordinance number 6055, under guidelines that were adopted by the city council. The council does have that authority under the charter to do that, and it did that. In this particular ordinance, the council asked and directed that HLC have involvement, and they created a process for that involvement with regard to the guidelines for the outdoor business facilities. Sometimes people call them parklets, but within the State Street Promenade, they're outdoor business facilities. That's what we're talking about. It's those guidelines that develop those facilities that you would be requested to have input on if there are changes made to those guidelines. That's it, nothing more. With regard to the development of other aspects of the of State Street as we're going along, the council did provide an opportunity for the chair of HLC to participate as if basically the chair were a staff member at council meetings where State Street is discussed. There's going to be a discussion, for example, on October 31st with regard to, I believe it has to do with some of the bike lanes and transportation aspects. That's my recollection. That a general report will obviously be coming out soon, and the chair of the commission would have the opportunity to present there. With regard to the design of the master plan, that's not contained within Title 31. The city council adopted a specific process for the State Street Master Plan development. That authority is delegated right now to the State Street Advisory Committee, and the council has the authority to do that, and it did that. So I think there's been a gross misstatement by the speakers here today about what Title 31 does.
Well, what's happened here is that you have not addressed the question of charter, city charter section 817, which says we approve, disapprove, or approve with conditions any structures or whatever in EPV. You've ignored that and simply said, well, because they're drawing plans on paper which show bikes or people walking, you have no control over that. Yeah, maybe. But the fact that they're putting up fences, roof structures, enclosures, all this stuff up there without our approval or review is the fact that you're ignoring the city charter, period. And you're advising, apparently, the city council to ignore it as well.
Just as Commissioner Lembeck, just in terms of our, you can say all of that, I'm all for you saying all that.
Yep.
But we are going to try to keep it down as well.
Well, it's a question. I mean, he ignored the question, so I have to raise my voice.
No, you don't have to raise your voice. You have a microphone.
May I answer that question?
Yeah, yes, please.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, members of the commission, and Commissioner Lembeck. The question was, did I ignore the city charter? The answer is no. We are very well aware of what the city charter says. And when you read further down in the charter, it does provide the city council with the authority to make determinations as to when things should not go to the HLC. Pursuant to that authority, it adopted the various ordinances that relate to the closure of State Street and how it is operating as a promenade. They did that and continued it in ordinance number 6055 and in the Title 31. So with regard to the design, if you will, kind of reeling back a little bit, the outdoor business facilities in the promenade just kind of happened. They happened under the existing the previous ordinances when we shut down State Street and we're dealing with the COVID crisis. It has evolved since then into a process where they are regulated through guidelines that are adopted and have been approved by the council. The council specifically approved those guidelines when it adopted the ERETO, that was Ordinance 6055, and when it adopted Title 31. The council, neither the council nor the city attorney's office ignored the charter. The charter is the constitution for the city, and we follow it scrupulously.
So just as a sort of follow-up, so what you're saying is basically because the charter allows for city council, which probably, I'm guessing, and that this I don't know, but probably because in the end, all appeals go to city council, any HLC appeal goes to city council, that city council can basically do an override of, in this instance of what you're saying, the business facilities, and that's the power that is allowed to why, and at first it was emergency ordinance, and then it got rolled into a not emergency, but keep going ordinance. And so that's where, if I'm understanding right, that's where you're saying the power is coming from to have an override over.
Honorable Chair, members of the commission, in a word, yes. The city council is the ultimate legislative body for the city, and all the power of the city is vested in the city council. And so they do have that power. We did consider the provisions of Charter Section 817 when we were drafting the various ordinances and concluded that they are, obviously, we believe that the ordinances that have been adopted by the council are lawful and fully consistent with the charter.
Okay, and then another point of clarity, so the outdoor business facilities, so is there a difference between the outdoor business facilities and, planters or, pots or, inappropriate Adirondack chairs, or any other furnishings that are not part of the business facility but are part of the street and flow and everything, which, and I would say, I would couch that with saying, normally, like back in the old days, we used to review everything from construction fencing to, for long-term projects especially, to any other semi-temporary things, even art installations, even though we didn't technically have the purview for it, but still as for consideration. And then everything from outdoor furniture like benches or fountains or anything like that. So that was what our normal protocol was. Is this, the outdoor business facilities, does that include a broader brush than just the parklets or the outdoor business dining?
That Honorable Chair, members of the commission, that's a really good question. The provision relating to the review of the guidelines does relate to the outdoor business facilities. It's Title 31, Chapter 31.30 is the outdoor business facilities within State Street. The other facilities that you have out there, to be honest with you, haven't really thought about it. It's not regulated by the ordinance. Those are facilities that are placed there by the city for the operation of the promenade. So, for example, what you referred to as the inappropriate Adirondack chairs were placed there by the city as a basically temporary accommodation for the public to have places to gather within State Street. And so, should that have come to the commission first? I don't have an opinion for you on that today. I have not thought about it. If you want to refer it to us, Dave and I'd be happy to look into it.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Uli.
I have at least one question. It may lead to others. Can you describe the boundary of the, quote, promenade, unquote?
Yes, I can. It is State Street from Haley Street to Victoria Street, and that's the promenade. And then there are other areas that are outside of the promenade that are subject to Title 31, the 000 block of West Victoria, the 1300 block of State Street, and the 400 block of State Street are part of the area that's within Title 31 but is outside of the promenade.
All right, let me do a follow-up question. Does it include the entire width of the right-of-way from private property line to private property line, or just the right-of-way of the paved road?
It would include, Honorable Chair, members of the commission, it would include the entire right-of-way. Technically, the street includes the entire right-of-way boundary, not just the roadway portion. It includes the sidewalks, the curbs, and the gutters, and any other right-of-way that might be outside. On State Street, I believe it runs right up against the property boundaries.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I have a question about process, and this is probably best for staff, but I understand that we're being asked to make recommendations to the City Council. And I'm wondering, how can the HLC discuss amongst ourselves recommendations to provide to the chair without violating the Brown Act? Is there a formula or a way for us to have a discussion that doesn't violate Brown Act?
We can just start an email chain, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Chair Grumbine, Commissioner Dord, and I think what staff is asking, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you create a subcommittee that could help guide staff and report to this committee. Like all things under the Brown Act, if you want to have a discussion about it with more than a majority of the board, we would put it onto the agenda, and you could have that discussion on how you wish to direct the chair, keeping in mind also from a staffing and administrative standpoint of how large your agendas are and the public's need to actually get their projects approved. So just keeping that in the back of your mind.
I do.
And actually considering that some of this, more questions may come up with this, and considering how we're already getting behind, and this is a really important topic, but I think this might speed the conversation along as well, as part of an update. So we've talked about this, and actually Commissioner Ensberg and I have been reporting back to you on under subcommittees at the State Street. It was not fully realized or recognized or made subcommittee, but they did ask for volunteers, whatever it was, 9 months ago or so. Commissioner Ensberg and I volunteered, everyone agreed, and we've been sort of reporting back to you. The idea, and we have continued to meet with them over the last couple of months as well, the idea is that we're meeting, giving real time, trying to figure things out, coming to everyone HLC as well during HLC meetings, asking for things like specs for, good chairs, good umbrellas, things like that, and us doing the legwork as well. This is sort of, as my understanding is, this is more of a formalizing of that process based on what City Council has requested.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner. So that's a really important point that under the ERETO, the emergency ordinance, as you know, through COVID, a lot of things changed. Council adopted this emergency ordinance, and then there was just staff looking for HLC input. That informal support that you and Commissioner Ensberg have provided, this working group would replace that to formalize the process, again, under the Title 31 that Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Henschke, described.
And then, okay, great. And then maybe we'll just fold this into questions and comments so we don't have such because we can keep going back to questions as people have them. But I think the thinking, at least for what Commissioner Ensberg and I have discussed a bit, has been, and with staff, has been that having this sort of constant flow, we would plan on meeting like every 2 weeks with them or so, 2 weeks or a month, and staggering it so that we can get back to HLC and keep everyone informed. I would see it as something that was an actual 15-minute item at the beginning, that we kept it to 15 minutes, and that Commissioner Ensberg, and I was actually going to ask if Commissioner McClure as well could officially, because we've asked him some questions on the landscaping side of things, but we really need that input as well. So if he could officially be part of it, and then we could be bringing to you all specs, ideas, what's going on, and it will be more of a real time, and it would be, hopefully keep that really efficient flow of information, which hasn't been happening except for in the very recent past, but it'll allow for us you all to give comments as well. So that was I think, sort of the forming and thinking of how this would work, or given the circumstances.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lee.
I like that idea. Are we on this split question, comment, question, probing? All right. Just want to make sure I'm on my boundary. I like that idea. I think we should add like an item F or somewhere in that general business where there's a standing report expected to HLC. Otherwise, we will not be in the loop and will not know what's going on. And further improvements will be made to that promenade and then come to us after the fact, which is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So I support that. And if you need a motion, I'll make the motion. We'll figure out how we word it in a minute. On general comments, my expectation was that once the pandemic was, quote, officially over, unquote, and we were no longer in a pandemic world, that we would just simply revert back to the normal course of action. Things that go on in EPV, whether it is furniture or lighting or plants or awnings or whatever, normally came to HLC for review, either on consent or came to the full board or whatever, and that's not happening. It just seems to be a continued Wild West out there. As an example, I was walking down the street, and the 5 or 6 buildings that have CVS in them now have twinkle lights along the eave. And I thought, is that a pandemic thing? Where'd those come from? And these things just seem to crop up, and it's like nobody cares that we have an HLC and that we look at this stuff. I'm puzzled as to why at a staff level and a recommendation to the city council, we just simply wouldn't revert back to the old rules, with the new rules allowing the street to be a promenade and things go on in the street in a promenade way, but revert back to the old rules. I'm a little confused.
Okay, Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I just would like to say, I feel responsible as an architect for failing to educate what it is that we do. Now, one of our earlier speakers said that he wasn't a spaceship pilot. And I'm certainly not a lawyer. I don't know anything. I respect greatly what everybody else does. That's not what I do. I'm an architect, and I feel like there is a lack of understanding about exactly what we do and why it's so important. The whole street, the whole downtown, the entire EPV is a composition of many things. Some of them are very technical, like drainage, and some of them, or HVAC, whatever it might be. It's all of these things, and the architect's job is to work as a team with all of these other experts to be sure all the things that are very expensive and not real fun, like having toilets, for example, that we be sure that all of it comes together in a way that meets the community's, the aesthetic, that it represents the community's values. So, twinkle lights, whatever. All of these things are important, and that is why we're here, is to be sure that it all comes together in a way. So I just feel maybe we need to have more. I'm so glad for this conversation, because this really needs to happen. And I want people, the HLC and all the design review boards, as flawed as they may be, because we're all human beings, they do cause projects to be better, and they do enable the public to know what's going on. So we're representing the values of the community. That is our job. And to be sure that, this thing we always talk about, the firmness, the commodity, and the delight, all of it has to come together in a way that, in that delight. So I just wanted to say that, and that really any good designer worth their salt would absolutely demand for the review and the critique, because you can't, it's so complicated, you can't see it all. So you really have to rely on this review to be able to be sure that you didn't miss something. And especially for buildings, the built environment, what could be more complicated besides a human body maybe? But that's what's so important about it. And so I just want to say that and have you think about it, because we're not trying to be obstructionists. We're not trying to be, pains in the you-know-what. We're trying to do our job, which is to ensure that Santa Barbara moves forward in a way that is respectful and acknowledging of our historic riches and what inspires us all, but in a way that we can move forward. But if we're not at the table, it's not going to happen.
Chair
So, thank you.
Grumbine, if I may, I respect the comments that the commissioners are making and the frustration that we're hearing. I would like to just hopefully refocus a little bit. I remind you that council did take the action, they did adopt the ordinance. So what staff is asking today is what process works well to convey your purview and your design ideas to the council in the opportunity and forum that they've provided for you. So if we can focus on that, I know staff would greatly appreciate to hear how you'd like to go forward with that.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Lundberg.
Yeah,
What's his name?
In response to that, the city council doesn't review every building permit. But building permits are implied in the prior to the use of the property. And I don't know why, I mean, I don't know that Title 31 talks about building permits, but you have to get an electrical permit to hook up electricity. But for some reason or other, you don't have to get an approval from the Landmarks Commission on the architecture. It may not be stated, it's not even implied, it's just understood that the city staff is not going to require anybody to get a Landmarks approval, nor is city council, and it really is unfortunate. And I think in response to the gentleman that spoke earlier, it's not going to be up to the Landmarks Commission to yell and scream at the council members. That's not going to do us any good as much as we would like to do it. It'll simply diminish our ability to perform our job. If anything's going to be done, you've got to hire an attorney who will talk to the city attorney and get a response, and if the response isn't good, then you do a little bit of lawsuit. I know there have been one or two attorneys that have already written to the city attorney's office. I have no idea what the response has been, but we certainly don't see any jumping up and down on of the city attorney before the council regarding this issue. It's just they're ignoring Landmarks Commission. They're ignoring the aesthetics and the beauty of downtown. Totally. It's
So,
just,
we'll go to Commissioner Uli, and I wanted to respond to your comments afterwards, Commissioner Lemmick, but, yeah. Commissioner Uli?
Thank you. In response to the counselor's suggestion, I'm all for a positive process that helps to facilitate the conversation and get things done. I'm very pessimistic about staff bringing issues to HLC because we've seen Edison transformers pop up in Paseos. We've seen furniture arrive in places before HLC knows about it. And so while there might be a process to do so, these things often happen before HLC even hears about it or is asked what they think. And if part of this process solves that knuckle, that would be nice, because why come to us if it's already done?
Yeah. And I think as part of that, I think that is part of this process construction as well, is so that we can have a regular feed loop going on as opposed to what has been happening, which is finding out weeks or months later that once it's actually happened. To Commissioner Lenvick's point, and maybe and tie it to Commissioner Ensberg's, and then trying to tie a bow on this. So I think to Commissioner Ensberg's point, in some ways, I agree and take that responsibility as well in terms of conveying the importance of HLC, because in some ways, if we had a stronger, better way of communicating the importance of what we do and to the community, we wouldn't be in the situation we are, because City Council wouldn't have used the power to just, which may be totally, I'm going to assume it is, totally legal and within their jurisdiction to preemptively do, sort of box us out of that. Now, I understand the complexities of it, but in terms of going from emergency ordinance, and then people have all this stuff, and then trying to take things away or change things after you already have, they already have things, it makes it a lot harder. So there's that kind of built into it. But I think that to the point of, that decision has already been made, and it's not up to us in our authority, because we're just being asked how, nicely asked how to be able to be actually integrated into the conversations in a meaningful way. in a useful way. So I think that's the authority and power we have right now. The only thing I would say as a potential thing we might do as an ask is ask City Council and ask staff to ask City Council for us about some sort of a more serious sunset clause that doesn't just do what has happened the last 3 sunset clauses or whatever, which is just get re-upped in another way, where there has to be I don't know if this is ever done, but does City Council ever require a sunset clause that without a supermajority or some other more than just a 50% vote on a motion to basically mean like this has got to be either unanimous or near unanimous to keep it going?
Honorable Chair, members of the commission, in my career, I have seen city councils try to do that. The problem is that you create a supermajority by a council majority vote, then you can undo the supermajority by a council majority vote. So the council, our government is basically structured around a majority vote of the quorum to take an action. Certain actions, like the adoption of an ordinance, take a majority of the entire council, for example, 4 votes, but that's just the way the government works. So that's kind of a long way of saying, yeah, I've seen it tried, but it never works.
Yeah, okay. Commissioner Jordan?
A quick comment and addressing process. I'm very sympathetic to the public comments that we have heard. I share that concern. What we're dealing with is a unique emergency situation that created this originally, the COVID. And we're trying to navigate our way out of that. In terms of process, before the unique emergency situation, we had a process in which the HLC had to approve specific development proposals, physical interventions in EPV, and that system worked. So for my own 2 cents, we had a system in place that worked in a process, and we need to get back to that.
Chair.
Okay.
Chair?
Yeah, and then we will be trying to wrap it up here. So, and last quick thoughts, and then we'll hopefully get to a motion. Go ahead, Commissioner Ensberg, and then Commissioner Early.
Okay. Yes, just one last word. I would just ask for your help to figure out how we can help our community, all of us, to recognize the expertise and the value of design so that we can do our job. It's just as simple as that.
All right, Commissioner Uli, and then Commissioner Butler, and then we'll wrap it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question really is, I think, for the chair, Commissioner Ensberg and McClure. Since you're already involved in this effort, are you willing to serve on such a subcommittee if we formed it?
I don't know. I would, Commissioner McClure.
Then I would make a motion, we create the State Street Interim Subcommittee made up of the chair, Ensberg, and McClure.
Second.
All
And
right.
Mr. Chair, and to the motion maker, can we just reframe that as working group, just for the minutes, please?
Working group. You can call it whatever you want. It has those 3 people on it.
Then.
Yeah, well, I'm expecting somebody to do some work. I don't.
All right.
And Chair Grumbine,
Second.
Chair Grumbine, and also just to express, gratitude to all of you, to everyone here, to our community. We're all trying to work through this, so I just want you all to know how much you're all appreciated.
Thank you.
And working group is to avoid Brown Act issues, I suppose, because you name it a working group.
Ad hoc committee, working group, but really this is more of a working group as you're working with the staff to provide recommendations as opposed to directly reporting back to the commission.
All right, and.
I'll call for the question.
Okay, wait, Commissioner Butler, did you have anything to say? 'Cause you.
So I would support the motion. I guess, just for clarity, so understanding, in the Title 31, I'm reading off your screen, a process for providing reports and recommendations. Does that exclude the HLC from having an enforcement role?
Chair Grumbine to Commissioner Butler. Yes, the enforcement role is at a staff level. If you had an enforcement role, you would potentially be biased as to projects that would be coming before you for approval. so we keep it at a staff level. It's also criminal prosecution, that kind of thing of enforcement rests with the city attorney.
Because that was my next question, was why? So I guess,
I think that's
All
the
right.
way police powers work.
yeah.
That's
Badges and
correct.
Guns.
All right. Yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to get into that. Okay, any other comments or anything? Okay, all right. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Linvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, thank you very much. All right, and sorry for the delay, but it was a very important item to discuss. So we are on now to item 2. This is a structure of merit designation for 1770 Prospect Avenue. This is request to adopt resolution 2023-11, designating the structure constructed in 1924 in the Spanish colonial revival style, a historic structure of merit. So, do we have the owners or?
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. Nicole Hernandez should be here momentarily to present the items to you. We just want to vamp a little bit there.
You thought it would take longer on State Street. She was gambling. She was gambling on the. I know these guys. They're going to be a good solid 2 hours.
Such a dramatic entrance.
All right. All right, Ms. Hernandez. And then is this going to be going up on that screen?
Or will
Or
it
is
be
it
on
on
our
this one?
monitors?
Or this one if we're there.
It's probably
for
going to
1
be up
year.
on that screen, is my guess.
It is.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The first item before you today in the historic designation area is 1770 Prospect Avenue. This was, both of these, this and the next item were recommended by the designation subcommittee for your review for structure merit designation. This building was constructed in 1924. It's a small house interpretation of a Spanish colonial revival style building. And here you can see it is where it's located way up on Prospect, right where it converges with Cleveland. And next door to this house is a landmark house that is a Queen Anne house. And then this is a picture of how the building recesses into the building's porch recesses into the building underneath the pergola. And here you can see some of the other features. It's set on a corner with this really domineering sandstone wall and sandstone steps that lead to the building. It has character-defining features of the Spanish style with its terracotta coping roof, or coping just lining the parapet wall. It has the front entry recessed under a portico with those 2 square openings and the pergola. It has the characteristic smooth stucco walls and broad uninterrupted wall surfaces punctuated by careful use of openings. And then it has these really beautiful wood casement windows with 4 divided lights in the top part of the sash. And it also has a really wide front door. It also represents similar to designs that were part of the small house design competition with the L shape and the casement windows and the terracotta smooth stucco walls. It was featured in types similar to this in the 1924 competition locally, as well as in the 1929 edition of Small Homes of Architectural Distinction by the Plans by Architects Small House Bureau, which was part of the nationwide movement. And you can see again the L shape, similar characteristics to this house. So as an original 1924 Spanish colonial revival home, the house represents the type of house encouraged by the small house movement of the 1920s, as well as the planning leaders in Santa Barbara being in the Spanish colonial revival style, and retains the required historic integrity to meet criterion 3 of the Santa Barbara Municipal Code. And that is my quick summary for you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we will have public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak on this item, please come forward. All right, seeing none, do we have any virtual public comment?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Moving to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom at this time, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. I'm not seeing any hands raised on Zoom, and we also did not receive any general written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, to the commission for any questions about the designation? Report, anything? Not seeing any. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll move to designate 1770 Prospect Avenue, structure of merit.
Second.
All right, second by Commissioner Ensberg. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, on to, oh yeah, do we have the certificate of? Okay, you'll get a certificate of merit designation, so. So that, yes, everyone knows it's real.
Or they can watch us on TV.
That's right, yeah, thank you very much. All right, on to item number 3, structure of merit designation for 43 Portola Lane. This is a request to adopt resolution 2023-12, designating the structure constructed in 1915 in the Craftsman style and relocated in 1975 to 43 Portola Lane, a historic structure of merit. All right, so for the next.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This is a unique building. It was actually constructed in 1915 at 320 West Los Olivos Street in the Craftsman style, and I found the building permit that relocated it in 1975 to save it from demolition because it became a site for parking for the hospital area uses. And here you can see it on the 1930 Sanborn map in its original location in Oak Park, which at that time was all residential. And this block appeared almost all craftsmen. And these are the 3 remaining craftsmen on that block at the top picture. And the picture below is what the surface level parking is on the rest of the block. And so when right, I know. So this house now sits up on Portola Lane, and it's rare that I get called to this neighborhood to look at a historic building. I just couldn't even believe there was one up there, but it was because it was relocated, which was great. And I found some Polaroids in the street file that showed what it used to have, these big, large piers and railing and the paired columns on the ends. And the applicant would like to return it to its original configuration with hopefully a Mills Act application next year. But it does retain all the other elements of the Craftsman house, including the narrow wood weatherboards, the big wood windows with wide frame. Here are the 2 more Polaroids I found down in the street file. And it has this really magnificent, wide, big Craftsman door with these really beautiful divided lights. And then it has the unique or typical wide overhanging eaves and exposed rafter tails as well. And it is still an original 1915 Craftsman style home, which in the Craftsman style, as we all know, is really important to the architectural repertoire of our city, and it exemplifies a rare example of a house moved to a new location to save it from demolition, and it retains enough historic integrity to meet criterion 3 of the Santa Barbara Municipal Code. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so we'll go to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item in the room? All right, not seeing anyone. To virtual public comment?
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. Moving to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom at this time, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. Not seeing any hands raised on Zoom, and we also did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. To the commission for any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair House.
Staff, is that a historic cat door under the picture window? That's fine.
In the Polaroid.
No, actually, in the more recent photo. You can barely see it there, but there it is.
Right there.
Oh, yeah, there we go. It's off center like the main front door too, just barely.
Yeah.
They used to have little places for your milk.
Yeah, that's in the kitchen.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions aside from cat questions?
Is the city going to pay for chiropractic if we get a crook in our neck?
The city
our
left
fr-
the meeting. They're done with it.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, if there's no other questions, does someone want to make a motion?
I'll move a resolution to designate 43 Portola Lane as a structure of merit.
Second.
Okay.
All right, there was a tie, goes to the
Give it to
Commissioner,
anybody you
yeah,
want.
because the further away, Commissioner, or the first, all right, Commissioner Uli. And then under discussion, any discussion? All right, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Linvik,
Yes?
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes,
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you, and you'll get your designation as well,
So I'll mail you your certificate. Thanks.
certificate designation. Yeah. All right, thank you very much. Okay, on to, we're going to keep this charge going, on to item 4. This is 101 West Canon Perdido Street. This is contributing historic resources to El Pueblo Viejo, designed in 1927 in the Spanish Renaissance plateresque style by Mason and Hurd Architects. Request to review the Chapala Street elevation entrance installed in 1958, designed by Chester Carjola, AIA, to evaluate if the alteration has gained historic significance in its own right to guide appropriate treatment moving forward. All right, so,
That's me.
all right,
Yeah.
your turn.
Me again. Okay, so we wanted to have a very good examination and vote by the commission on this entrance so we can help guide how the applicant can move forward in designing ADA access through this entrance. So this building was the telephone building. It had a full page in the news press when it was completed in 1928. It went into deep discussion how they were so excited because they actually used a model building from Sevilla, to mimic it off of. And this is what it looked like when it was completed. It was 2 stories. And they also noted in the article that they had put the foundation in to hold a 3-story building, expecting an addition one day. And this is the Chapala Street elevation, which was the one that has been altered. And this doorway here is the one that is no longer there. And this, in 1947, that 3rd story was designed and went on top of the building. And it was designed very similarly to the original building, so it was, I believe it really was compatible. And then in 1958, they added a whole nother section to the building. So here's the original building with its now 3rd story addition from 1948, and then they added all of this in gray. And this is the year they added the addition of that new entrance. And so here's the original Chapala Street entrance here, and here's the new one, which is like really signature Chester Carjola. He did a lot of mid-century stuff. And then you can see the 3rd story addition and these additions here. And here you can see in the brickwork where the addition came in to the original building. And here's the mid-century entrance with the aluminum entrance. And I put in with your packets the Secretary of Interior's advice on features gaining historic significance in their own right. So I'm just going to go through it really quickly with several slides because it's complicated. And I want to just make sure you have all the information as guidance from the Secretary of Interior, and then let you all decide how to move forward. We thought that would be the quickest way rather than having the designers go ahead and design something without knowing if this was qualified. So the Secretary of Interior Standard Number 4, as most of you know, states most properties change over time, and changes that have acquired significance in their own right shall be retained and preserved. So what does that mean? Materials, features, and spaces do not need to be original to be considered historic or character defining. Some properties have significant not only for the way it was originally constructed and crafted, but also for the way it was adapted for later periods and illustrated changing tastes, attitudes, and uses. Buildings do change over time, and some of the changes contribute to a property's historic significance, if it's important in defining the property's historic character. Here's the big one. Changes should be carefully evaluated for their relative importance to a property's overall historic character. A change is not automatically considered to acquire significance just by its age or being part of the period of significance. So it doesn't have to be just old. Some changes may have little or no historical architectural merit, and may not be sufficiently important that they have to be retained. For example, a later structural glass storefront may be important as an example of an architectural style significant with an association or event or use. Although a later change to a building may not be significant if a property is important as an example of a specific architectural style or particular architect. So a storefront change to a multi-use storefront commercial building, that change is made for a particular use or just a tenant, may not be important depending on the extent to which they contribute to the property. And this is, evaluating the spaces, materials, features, and why it's significant to determine the change's relative importance. And this, I think, helps here. This is a contributing building to a historic district. A change needs to be evaluated within the context of the building and the district. In this case, it's a Spanish Plateresque building in El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District, which is known and mandates Mediterranean and Spanish colonial revival styles. And the relative importance of a change to a historic character of a property remains specific to an individual property, as well as to how it contributes to the district. And again, just remember, a change is not automatically considered to acquire significance just because it's over 50 years old. So, they also talk about replacing missing features only when there's significant evidence available, and designing new features that's compatible with the character of the building. The new design should always take into account the size and scale and material of the building and be clearly differentiated. And this is kind of reestablishing missing features should not be undertaken if the missing feature did not coexist as it did currently, and juxtaposing historic features that did not exist concurrently will result in a false sense of the building's history. So for you today, there's been two changes to that building. One is the third floor and additions. They acquired significance in their own right, and has the Chapala Street entrance acquired has significance in its own right. And I did just want to give a little history. In 2011, the entrance came before the HLC, and this was the design that was approved at that time. The majority of the commissioners felt the ADA access was currently proposed as less intrusive than previously proposed, but it's marginally compatible with El Pueblo Viejo guidelines. It addresses discrepancies in the handrail particular configuration, and they asked to return with a design just with more details. And it did pass 6-2 with 2 opposed. So that's the history of that. And that sort of brings you up to speed. So this is really what we're looking at. What do you all think of that Chapala Street entrance, and how do you want to direct its design? I think is where we'd like to know, and why we're here today for that detail.
Okay. All right, great. If that completes your presentation, we'll go to public comment. Any
Okay.
member?
I'll let you all know this will count as one of your trainings on the second, since it was more lengthy than usual.
Okay, yes, we get credits.
Is it a pass-fail kind of situation?
And depending on how long this takes, we could get hours of credit. All right, so so is there anything else to go presentation-wise before we go into public comment or questions? Again,
Yep, I think that
discussion.
wraps up our
Okay,
situation.
great. So let's go to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this in the room? Would you like to comment on it? Okay, as a member of the public?
Yeah.
Okay,
2 minutes.
go ahead. You got 2 minutes. Normally you have to go over there.
Oh, you want me to go over there?
Yeah, as
Okay.
officially.
If you're a member of the
Public.
Okay, I'll go over there. I am a member of the public. Brian Cornell. I had this conversation with Nicole and suggested that we bring this as a discussion item because looking at it, Nicole had some conversations with the building owner and with myself about trying to bring back that old entrance that was there originally when it was a 2-story building. And I thought, trying to do that would be really difficult in this day and age with the workmanship that we get. And, I started looking at the old plans and seeing that Chester Carjola had done this along with Frank. Frank Greer was his associate, by the way. And I thought, gosh, that there is potentially some significance there. It clearly differentiates itself from that original building. And the whole issue of what we're dealing with here is creating an accessible entrance. And so it just seems like, gosh, should we change that or should we just simply tuck an accessible entrance in similar to what was previously approved rather than trying to completely change it? So I thought it would be a worthy discussion item and love to hear your comments.
All right, thank you. And if you have imagery that might be helpful, then you can come sit here. No. Okay, she has all. Okay, she has all of it. Okay, great. Okay, so any other member of the public wishing to comment? Okay, can we go to virtual?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
am I understanding the only proposed improvements or changes to the building would be changes to the accessible entrance?
You can
No,
come
sit
here.
up
Ask, yeah. So, now you get invited to the table.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, the building has toxic issues, so unfortunately, the perfect thing for this building would become residential, but it can't. So it is likely going to be used for storage, self-storage, and really the main entrance to that is probably going to be back off of that alley entrance off of De La Vina. And so, but we still have to provide the accessibility because it doesn't exist in that old 58 addition. So that is the only change to this building, along with maybe some minor ramp revisions in the back in the utilitarian side of the building.
And sorry, to add to that question. So the third story, we're just talking about whether that third story element is in its own right kind of added to it. You guys, there isn't going to be a question of whether we add to the third story.
No,
and make
I was
it a
just
third
going
story.
to add it to the report while I
Got it.
have you
Okay.
all here.
Okay. Got it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Uli.
A follow-up on the Vice Chair's question. If the use of the building changes and the primary entrance then is off the parking lot, which is in the back, and there is no primary entrance off of Chapala Street, why isn't ADA accessibility proposed for the primary entrance, which is what the law requires?
Well, I probably misspoke. When I said primary, I think for the users of the storage facility who are going to be wheeling things in and out, they'll be using that sort of industrial ramp that currently exists off the back of the building. But this is still the entrance to the 2 primary elevators. It still will be the public entrance to the building. So this will be the primary entrance, even though most people using the storage facility will come in off.
So this is
of
the business front door,
Correct.
not the active.
Exactly. I mean, this is obviously where back in 1958, 60, when it occurred, when this addition occurred, this is where all the people that worked in the building, all the operators and everything would come. But no longer.
And we didn't care about accessibility in
We
1958.
didn't, no.
All right. Other questions? Okay, why don't we roll into discussion item, or discussion as.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Early.
It is a very interesting question of importance of the 1958 entrance. You know, interestingly enough, in my opinion, if you took a photograph of just the entrance without the context of the building, that entrance could go in any, industrial building or Mies van der Rohe building or any other building. So it's interesting. Whether it has obtained its own historic value within the context of this building, I would say I'm undecided at the moment. The addition is fairly compatible with the existing building. The third floor is fairly compatible with the existing building. If it didn't have this modern entry, you would think that whole building was the same, except that the interweaving of the blocks tells you something happened. Either a bad cleaning job or it was added on to. And so I'm struggling about the value of that entry. That being said, it seems that potentially the planter in front of the building could provide some kind of ramping solution that would get you up into that area without a large impact to the visual character of that entry or its wainscot that travels along the bottom.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Jordan.
I have some comments about the building. What I'm trying to focus on is the history of the whole building, all the original and the subsequent additions. And telephone company buildings are very important buildings in 20th century American architecture, both for what the building type was and who the company was, the telephone companies. I used to teach 20th century architecture, and there's a long argument that technology in the modern world, and the telephone was the technology, right? The technology was incompatible with traditional urban character. That technology had to be expressed in a different way. If you wanted to be modern, you had to look modern. The telephone company buildings, this one and others all across the country, but this one in particular, is that counter argument that modern technology and important pieces of urban infrastructure, which is what a telephone company was, are in fact, can be compatible with an established urban character. So I find that a very compelling argument for the complexity of the building as a whole. I struggle with the fact that I don't particularly like that doorway. Right? So, but it's a part of the building. And when I look at the doorway itself is framed in a dark stone, which gives some sense of weight and solidity, which is part of the traditional qualities, and that the aluminum and glass is actually recessed in off the street. So with the argument about the complexity of the history of the building, and the building as an excellent example of a message that's important in Santa Barbara, that modern technology and urban character can be compatible. I'm inclined to be supportive of what's there. But like I say, I don't like it, so if somebody could convince me otherwise, I'm a weak vote.
Commissioner Butler.
I would support the comment. As one who worked for the phone company.
In 1920?
I used to pay my bills at that building. It was General Telephone. Everybody remember GT with the 5 crossbars in the back making all the clicking sounds when you'd hear over your phone when you'd forget it. That's history. Anyway, but I did work at 140 New Montgomery in San Francisco, which was Pacific Telesis headquarters, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous building. Anyway, my comment is I agree. The building itself has great presentation and great presence. The addition of this side entrance is not attractive and I think distracts somewhat from the overall intent, tenor, and style of the building. But I think it's given, if you've seen other central offices, they're just cubicle, blocked, no windows. look at the ATT building in San Francisco. It's awful. So I would support the recommendation.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House.
Well, I certainly support recognizing the significance of the third floor, but I would be reluctant to support the finding of significance of the entry on Chapala Street to the extent it could preclude other improvements to the building in the future, such as restoring that original entry. So I would rather not see that recognized as having gained significance.
All right, other comments? I'll throw my 2 cents in. Yeah, I agree with the challenge and struggle. This is a complex and it's a tricky one. It's like the gray area, and how do you, and I think that where I'm coming down on is, I mean, it's sort of, in a certain sense, it's like when they're digging in the Roman Forum and they find a medieval, the medieval layer, and it's like, do you keep digging or not? And it's like the medieval historians are like, no, don't, and the Roman ones are like, yeah, dig, dig, dig. So it is this kind of complex, discussion, and in that, along that vein, I would prioritize the original period of significance 1920s building over the 50s addition in sort of priority, if you're going, and for the exact reasons mentioned, like not wanting to preclude restoring the original entrance if they want to go full restoration. But as a rehabilitation project, I could see working with the existing and not having to restore, or not that being that not being the ultimate goal. So yeah, so I would support in general like an understanding on, and if you're going to work with the existing door, recognizing that Chester Carhola was a important figure. This is not an amazing piece of architecture that of a door entrance. I agree with. I don't like it actually. The first time I saw it, I thought it was like, wow, that someone screwed up and did some dumb entrance later, but then found out the rest of the building too, which is very
not too late to report it as a violation.
Yeah, exactly. But it's very interesting that it was both an addition that was so sensitive and so compatible, and then a striking entrance. So I would say I would be leaning on that more, where a restoration of the other would be totally supportable, and also a sensitive working with that entrance would also be supportable. So it sort of be a way in which it depends on how you want to frame your rehabilitation versus restoration versus a combo of them. So I think either of those would be supportable, but with the primary building being the most important period of significance, and so I think it would be somewhere along those lines. Now, that obviously sets up a problem, because now when you go to design within, but it's not our fault, it's Chester Carhola's fault. Because
Let's dig him up.
Yeah, exactly. Because he set up this now you're in El Pueblo Viejo, so it should be Mediterranean, and then you also have this, mid-century modern feel going too. So it's a bit of a challenge, but I think it's doable. I don't think it has to be strongly Spanish Colonial Revival or something like that. It could be a simplified approach that can work with both. But it does set up an automatic challenge, because you're in the EPV and the original building is within the Spanish Colonial Revival tradition. So and Plateresque is it's very unique in that as well for our city. Very few. So
just a quick follow-up question, if I may, Mr. Chair. I think this is designated, isn't it? Isn't it an SOM?
It's a contributing structure to the district.
All right. It's not an SOM. I
Not
thought
a-
it was an SOM. Yeah, I totally agree with those comments. Obviously something needs to be done, and I think as long as the proposed work is consistent and compatible with the building, even though it might not strictly adhere to our guidelines, I think that is acceptable. It's when you do a brand-new building and it doesn't fit the guidelines that we should really have a problem, but it should be compatible and sympathetic to the building.
all right, even if the building is schizophrenic.
Well, that happens too. Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? So maybe I'll take since this is a discussion item, should I take a shot at summary of, okay. So in summary, it's sounding like we're in general agreement that the main period of significance is the original 1920s building. And while the addition, including the 1950s entry, are significant, especially because Chester Carhola was a architect of note in Santa Barbara. We also recognize that a restoration of the original door in the future would be a possibility, and that the 1950s entry itself especially is not necessarily it's a secondary period for the building, and secondary period of significance. So is that, and then the third story. I think the third story, and the other portions of the second story, or other portions of the addition, seem like they fit well within it and would be, as part of that continued legacy of the building, so.
But the entrance is not going to be considered historic in its own right.
At
It can change it.
At least not to, as the prime period of significance, so. And yes, and we would see flexibility for changing or additions to it. And we would encourage, if you are going to be changing things, change that first.
Okay, so that would mean that you do not think it's historically significant.
Work with that sensitively
Okay.
first.
So I'm getting that it's not considered historically significant, but there's some flexibility for an applicant to develop something compatible. They don't have to.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And just to be clear, we should say that it's the 1958 Chapala Street entrance that we're talking about, not the other, not the other
When
entrances.
they go chiseling the Plateresque.
Yeah.
Ken and Perdido entrance. Okay, yes, good point. So is that good for a summary?
That helps me. Good. All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you very much. All right, do we need to take a break, or does everyone keep good with
Keep going.
All right, item number 5, archaeology report.
Oh, I've been waiting all meeting for this.
So have they. All right, so item number 5, 105 Harbor Way. This project includes the construction of a 360 linear foot rock revetment along the sandy beach between the Santa Barbara Yacht Club and Harbor West parking lot. The revetment is 15 feet high, partially buried, and 36 feet wide for a total area of 12,960 square feet and a volume of 7,200 cubic yards, constructed using approximately 6,000 tons of granite boulders from a quarry in Cambria. The new rock revetment was installed adjacent to the west end of an existing rock revetment, continuing the existing revetment alignment and extending the structure further to the west. The height of the revetment was constructed to match the existing height. Project also includes repairs to the parking lot, asphalt, and fencing. The project site includes all areas that have potential or cultural resources disturbances. Requesting acceptance of a Phase 1 Archaeological Resources Report prepared by Rincon Consultants. Dr. Glassow reviewed the report and agrees with its conclusions and recommendations. All right, so welcome. If you can introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners.
Oh, actually, let's press that. There we go.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Matthew Gonzalez. I'm an archaeologist, a senior archaeologist and project manager at Rincon. And we did the study for this earlier this year. And as part of our study, we did our standard record search through the CCIC here in Santa Barbara. We did SLF, Sacred Lands File Search through the Native American Heritage Commission. And we did some historic background research, some aerials, and historic map review, and cultural resources survey for it. The record search found one cultural resource that was slightly in, like a little sliver was mapped in the western side of the project site. However, it is no longer extant. It was destroyed, believed destroyed by development in the history of the area. The survey and the SLF search both came back negative. And our recommendations for this is to follow, to be consistent to the MEA guidelines. And we recommended a workers' environment awareness program training. archaeological and tribal monitoring, unanticipated discoveries protocols during constructions, including adherence to the state regulations for unanticipated discovery of human remains. And as you mentioned, Dr. Michael Glashow reviewed and agreed with our conclusions and recommendations.
All right, great. Thank you for that summary. All right, we'll go now to public comment. Any of the member of the public in the room wishing to comment on the archaeology report? Okay, we can go to virtual.
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, let's go to the commission for any questions.
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair House.
is this an EPV such that the project would be coming back for design review?
No, the project was already completed. It was an emergency project. From the storms that happened in January, there was some sand berms that were set up that were quickly wiped out by that storm.
Okay.
So that's why they extended the rock rivets going to the west to kind of replace that.
Okay.
And so it happened almost right, like I think it was a couple weeks after the storm, they did all that work.
Okay. Just for the sake of knowing, though, is this an EPV?
I believe the case planner for the project is here and can clarify, but I don't believe the project is an EPV or under HLC purview. It's
Yeah.
just the archaeological report.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right, does someone want to make a motion?
I'll move that we accept the Phase 1 ARC study for 105 Harbor Way.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second under discussion. Any discussion? All right, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. Gorin, your flashlight is on.
All right, thank you very much. All right.
with their brights on.
Okay. All right. So we are on to item 6. This is for concept review. It's a new item, 276 Cannon Drive. This is eligible for inclusion in the Historic Resources Inventory, constructed in 1954 and designed by Paul A. Green in the mid-century modern style. Proposed for exterior alterations to the existing 830-square-foot single-unit residence located in the Hillside Design District, including a 9-square-foot addition and roof extension. Replacement of existing wood shake siding with vertical board and batten siding to wooden board and batten siding to match original. Replacement of the existing asphalt shingle roof with a corrugated metal roof. New front door, window replacement, removal of existing 493-square-foot deck with a new 393-square-foot deck, and front entry stair and landing replacement. Project also includes landscape alterations, including California oak tree removal and mitigation. There are 2 parts of this item. There's a Part A is requesting acceptance of a Phase 1 and Phase 2 historic structure sites report prepared by Post Hazeltine. Phase 1 concluded the house, excluding its post-1954 additions and alterations, is eligible for listing as a City of Santa Barbara structure of merit under the criteria 2, 3, and 5 at the local level because it represents an important example of mid-century modernism designed by Paul A. Green, who made notable contributions to the city's architectural heritage. Phase 2 concluded the proposed project meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. Therefore, project impacts on significant historic resources would be less than significant, Class 3. And then Part B will be the no final appealable action will be taking place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings, minor alteration findings, and Hillside Design District findings will be required for project design approval. So that'll be reviewing the project itself, design-wise. All right, so welcome. As we typically do, I think we'll structure this so that we review Part A, and then we go to public comment for the report, and then we come back, have questions of the historians, and then pause the whole thing, and then go and review the project Part B, and then make findings on that. I guess we're not going to make findings. We'll make comments on it, and then we'll come back to the historic report. All right.
You knew that already.
All right, so please introduce yourselves for the record.
Yes, Pamela Post of Post Hazeltine Associates. Tim Hazeltine, Post Hazeltine Associates.
All right.
I'll give a really brief
Sure.
overview.
Yes, please.
I think the report goes into fair detail. It is a good, we found it eligible, as noted in the summary, because it represents a good example of residential mid-century architecture in Santa Barbara by Paul A. Green. I think we will just jump right to the crux of it is really the alterations and how those impact the historic structure. Subsequent to its original construction, when it was initially appears to have been used as a studio and then quickly transitioned to residential use. Later in the 70s and 80s, part of the building was clad in wood shingles. Windows were replaced. It seemed to be a sort of an attempt to give it a more early 20th century vernacular character. And then the decks were altered. We feel that it's very likely the metal stairs were replaced. There was an unpermitted addition off sort of the east end of the building that has been removed, but it was there until recently. And when the addition was removed, we were able to see underneath that the original cladding, which was plywood, basically plywood sheeting with battens to imitate the appearance of a true board and bat, but it wasn't. So the intent of the project essentially is a very small addition on the back of it, which is, I can't remember the exact square footage, I think it's less than 50 square feet. And then to remove all of the wood shingling that's not historic, to remove the non-historic windows, and replace them with windows that very closely match the windows that are depicted on the plan set that's archived at the City of Santa Barbara. They'd like to rebuild the deck. The deck's not original, and neither is its railing. And so we are supportive of the design of that, which we feel emulates not the strictive appearance of a mid-century deck, but it's in the flavor of that. The biggest change, I think, that we would all notice is the roof. The original was a rock roof, like asphalt and rock on top, which our understanding from all our discussions is that is not really a permittable roof type anymore. Currently, it's a composition shingle, which is also not in character with the building. We were supportive of the metal roofing that they chose, which does have a sort of undulations to it or corrugation. It's not what was there originally, but it is a roofing type that is characteristic of the mid-century, and we included a few photos of examples in Southern California. We felt that that was a good choice because there's really not a shingle type that would work on there, because any type of shingle is going to create that sort of patterning. It looks more like a fake wood shingle roof. We didn't want any sort of manufactured like stone-like material because it'd be too heavy looking. And so we thought this is a good compromise. It's in the overall aesthetic and also meets some of the objectives for the projects which we think are important. One is to enhance fire resistance. They're on a hillside, and there are oak trees around the building, and so we felt a roof of that type that is within the character of the architectural style achieves two things. It's sympathetic. It's appropriate, and two, it improves the safety of the structure in case of a fire. So if you have any questions, we can certainly add to that.
Sounds good. All right. So if that completes your presentation, we'll go to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item in the room? All right, not seeing any, we can go to virtual.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House and then Commissioner Uli.
Okay. The detached garage, is that original to the studio?
No, that's, honestly, I can't remember the exact year, but I think it was put in the 80s, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so-
And it's more of like a track-style suburban garage. It has no stylistic intersection with the house at all.
And that might have been built at the same time the shingles were put on the house?
Yeah, I think they were trying to make it look more woodsy.
Yeah, exactly. And if I understood from the report, in order to accommodate insulation in the roof, you are kind of folding the pitch so that you maintain the height of the fascia, the existing fascia, but then it slopes back, and by the exterior wall, it's thicker.
And apologies for not mentioning that, but the existing roof assembly, there's absolutely no room for any insulation. It has none. And in fact, the whole house as a whole has no insulation. I believe energy was quite cheap in the early 50s.
Oh, yeah. And the roof is largely not visible from the street, is that
Yeah,
right?
I think from the photos in the report, which I
what I
suppose I could
recall.
cursor through, it's not visible, mostly because it has a very low pitch. I've brought one photo up here. Of course, the house is way in the back. But this is
And
the,
it's up above.
yeah, and this is sort of the
view across.
public view,
Yeah.
because once you get onto the bridge and go across, you're on private property.
Okay.
So this is the part of the roof that's within the public view.
Commissioner Uli?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So are you characterizing in your report that the building is eligible the way it sits now or after it's been worked on?
It has enough elements to still, if you go out there, especially the elevation, it's actually up here right now, the top image, you can see the expanse of glazed wall of windows, which creates that mid-century kind of characteristic of the fusing of interior and exterior space. So when you're there and you look at it and you can see the details and the roof type and the angularity of the building, it almost looks like it was designed as not like a ship, but almost like a boat when you're up there. It looks like it's sailing over the tops of the trees. So I like the prow of a boat. So you still get the feeling of that. But the project as a whole will actually much enhance that by removing some of these unfortunate alterations.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right, in that case, we'll pause this part, we'll go to the project review and then come back. All right, so for Part B, if applicant come forward. Okay, welcome. If you could introduce yourselves for the record and then walk us through your project. You have,
Pull up our folder, or no, she's got everything up for us already. Great.
all right, you have up to 15 minutes, don't have to take the whole time, and then we'll go to public comment and then back to the commission.
Great, I'm Jarrett Gorin from Vanguard Planning.
And I'm Sergio Armachea with Vanguard Planning.
Okay.
So, Tim and Pamela kind of covered a lot of the architectural changes we're gonna do. We've got photos of the house, we have photos of the neighborhood. I don't know if that's critical, so we're gonna skip them unless you wanna come back.
Yeah, you can just kind of walk us through your set maybe. and-
Yeah, let's do that. So why don't we just start off with the existing elevations? So what you can see on here is the shake siding. And you can see these two windows on the front, the rectangular divided lights, which were the windows they were talking about that had been replaced. And then much of that glass, the big glazed walls are still in their original form. And you can see the deck that was put on there that extends in front of some of that glazing, and then just sort of the random stairs that are on the front there. So that's what we've got up there. And then let's go to the proposed elevations. So we're proposing to go to the board and bat siding. You can see we're restoring these more transom windows in place of those other ones. We're leaving the whole major glazed section intact. The deck we're replacing, you'll see this in a plan view, but we're cutting the deck back to have it intersect the point of where the two glazed walls come together, and so it doesn't extend in front of those anymore. And then the railing we picked out is I'll show you in the rendering we did, but it's going to be a clear anodized aluminum post, which matches the aluminum surrounds on the windows, and then wooden slats, just natural thin wooden slats, which we just think goes with the style. It's more traditional than a cable railing would be or something like that. So we designed this railing to work with the house. And then on the roof there, it's really accentuated here in our elevations. I don't think that the seams are going to be quite as obvious in reality, but what we're doing there is we've got a lot of heat loading in this house from these glass walls. They're all single pane. And a way to mitigate that is to improve the insulation in the roof. And we need some thickness to get that in the roof, but we didn't want to increase the thickness of the fascia around the edges of the roof. That would have made it much thicker and significantly changed how this residence looks from how it originally looked when it just had that sort of gravel membrane roof. So we have insulation in the roof, and then as you get closer to the edges, the idea is to just taper that roof down to meet up with the existing thickness of the fascia. So there's our front elevation. the two end elevations. And then on the back, right in the middle, in the very back, you can kind of see there's this bump out, part of which exists on the house, and we're just going to bump out a little bit more of it, 9 square feet or something, which accommodates part of the kitchen on the interior, and just incorporate that all within a single bump out that's on the back and faces a retaining wall up on the slope. So let's go down just to the rendering that we did. Oh, here's the roof plan. So on here you can kind of see how that roof works. It's the central section of it that's got the insulation in it. We're also proposing 2 skylights on the back side of the house. And then you can see on that deck how it's existing right now. And we're trimming it back and making it geometrical and linear with the house, and kind of springing from a logical point on the house rather than just sort of randomly going in front of those windows. So let's go down to that rendering we did. So this is what it'll look like if you were down in our parking area. Again, it's not super visible from the street. You've got to go back across this bridge to get up there. But this is what it would look like if you were down below, and lots of the colors we're proposing. We got a solid wood door we're putting in, and this is our goal here, to bring it back much closer to what was original there, and then fix some things like the heat loading in an appropriate way. So that's our presentation. If you got any questions, we can answer them.
Great. All right. So let's go to public comment. Any member in the public in the room wishing to comment on this item? No? All right. To virtual public comment?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. To the commission, any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair House.
Your metal roofing is corrugated, right? Kind of a sine wave corrugated. I'm wondering how you're going to solve that where you fold it, because you'd have to kind of counter flash it, and then you've got a strip of metal. So maybe standing seam might be a better material that you could fold, and the battens can fold with it.
So, Chair Grumbine, Commissioner House, we had originally talked about doing standing seam, but the historians are very averse to that material. And I think on this one,
one of them just ran away. So.
I think we'll be able to make that. You're talking about the fold where it changes the taper angle. Yeah. I think that they'll be able to overlap each other and just be able to. It's going to be a very thin seam. It's not a very radical angle there, and I think that if we just overlap the corrugation enough, that it'll be waterproof and it'll be okay.
If you can figure it out, then more power to you. Yeah. But I would support standing seam.
The rib height is a ½ inch, so it's very low profile, as opposed to the standing seam, which is about an inch, inch and a half, and so that would show up even more. So I think this approach is.
Okay. On the other hand, if a majority of the board strongly supports standing seam,
well,
let us know.
I don't support either, but I just don't want to see a strip of metal on there to counter flash it.
Right.
Looks even worse.
Okay. And so that might also be, as things go forward, that might be something that we, have as one of the next things to tackle, is how is that detail going to work? Because even though it's a detail, it actually
you got a roofer
also
who will guarantee it.
Yeah. It also has bigger implications on the roof. So, and it's a tricky one. Okay, Commissioner McClure?
I have a question on the hand railing. What's the dimensions on the wood slats, and what kind of wood is it?
We were thinking a 2x2 cedar, red cedar. The same with the top rail here.
And you think is that a 4-foot span on the post?
It's less. It's going to be. We're proposing 3.5, just to stay well within the maximum of 4 inches.
Okay, thank you.
And we also have overlapping at the ends here, so that it doesn't to maintain that 4 inch on that axis as well.
Oh, did you have a, oh, you already,
I'm actually the homeowner and the applicant. I wanted to.
Introduce yourself.
Hi,
Is it okay if?
yeah, sure. by all
Sure.
means.
I'm Skylar Greenwald. I'm the owner and applicant. So in response to the question about the roof, the concept as it is right now is that the tapering section would tuck ever so slightly underneath the insulated section. So we wouldn't be seeing flashing. You'd have the central section of the roof with all the insulation, and then ever so slightly tucked underneath that would be the corrugated that would go towards the eaves. And that would also allow us to have a slightly different configuration of the grooves, right? The orientation of that corrugated metal. I want to keep it square at all at the fascia, the top of the fascia, so that it looks even all the way around.
Well, like I say, as long as you can solve the problem,
Yeah.
so wind-blown rain doesn't
Yeah.
get driven back up in there.
I work professionally as a computer modeler. I spent about 150 hours on a computer model of this house, including laser scanning the entire
Is that
property.
all? No.
Yeah, including laser scanning the entire property.
Oh, wow.
Just so that I could understand. I spent more time on this roof than anything else, just trying to strike the balance of what makes it habitable. You know, this house is very warm and very cold.
Yeah.
And then what also really preserves the original character, because I bought this house because I love mid-century modern architecture, and I saw something that had been taken very far astray that I thought that I could really bring back to something.
It was this set of plans that had a letter to the commission on it.
Yeah, that was me. I wrote that. Yeah.
Did you have virtual wind-driven rain go up against your?
I did not.
Yeah, because officially we have hurricanes here now. Okay, other questions? Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes,
And then
thank
Commissioner
you,
Butler.
Chair Grumbine. Thank you for the presentation. It's always fun to see these types of houses. My question is, are you thinking at all about, I have a couple questions. One is about the garage, and are you thinking about maybe down the road doing something with it to bring it in line?
Chair Grumbine, Commissioner Ensberg, yes, we are. Ultimately, we would like to do an ADU down there, probably on top of the garage, and basically, we're going to reskin and redo that entire structure and do it in a way that's architecturally mirrors the house and is compatible with the house. But that's a
Right.
further phase down the road.
Okay, thanks. And then on the color, when the historians when you pulled back the siding that had been put on there, were you able to see what the original color was, or do you know what the original color of the house was?
It was
I know a lot of these houses did have a gray, but, so,
Yeah, anyone?
oh, it was?
Yeah, it was a gray, for the record.
Okay. Like that.
All right, any other questions? I had a question about, if you go to the elevations, yeah, so those windows, actually, yeah, right there, the proposed, can you hover over those strip windows up high? Are those are new?
Those are new.
Okay, is there a reason you didn't put the space in that you have there, the siding or whatever, wall space? Is there a
We have
functional?
the floor plan in there. I believe it relates to the floor plan.
There's a division between the kitchen and the bedroom.
Yeah, so one of those windows opens into the kitchen and the other two open up into a bedroom. And I don't know.
Any reason why you couldn't space them the same, like space it the same as the width of the door there, or whatever you have?
There isn't physically a reason why we couldn't do it.
Or a design reason, because I don't know if there are other window conditions like this, but this one stood out to me. Are you matching anything with those two windows together without a division, or not?
So in the original 1954 plans, it's glass straight across the whole thing. I think those plans are very notional. It's hard to know if that was actually how it was built or just what was put down on paper at the time. So we're trying to build or recreate the existing envelope of the glass as much as we can, but of course, we're not going to remove the partition between the kitchen and the
sure.
bedroom. So,
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. All right, any other questions? All right, so this is going, no final appealable action, but project compatibility findings, minor alteration findings, and hillside design district findings will be required for the project for design approval. So, let's go into comments. How is everyone feeling about this project and where the general direction's going?
I think it's a lovely restoration, and I think it's very sensitively done.
I think it's supportable.
Everyone, anyone else?
Chair Grumbine?
Yeah, Commissioner Hansberg?
I agree with what's been said. I would just add that I'm a little concerned about the 2x2s and how well they're going to hold up over time. I think you do have other options there. And the roof, I'm very familiar with this problem that you're having. Since you can't see it, then, but I think that probably, I wish you well on that roof. I'm not sure it's going to work the way you think. But other than that, I think it's very nice. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner McClure?
I have the similar comment on the hand, or the slats on the, seems like twisting, and I was thinking, what about a hardwood that's maybe less than 2x2? Just a thought.
Like Ipe or something. Yeah, we could look at that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'll chime in on the wood slats. Western red cedar is one of the most dimensionally stable lumbers, so, it doesn't have a propensity to twist and bow and stuff like that as much as a lot of others do. And I've seen tropical hardwood decks put down that after a few years, you've got boards springing up this way and that way, so I don't think that's bulletproof either, but 3.5 feet hopefully is doable.
All right. Other comments? So one thing I think we should weigh in on, which we're already weighing in on, is the roof, because that's sort of the biggest move at this point in terms of discussion. So I think that it'll be important to really study that construction details of that in case it ends up being that you need to change to standing seam or something else. It's sounding like currently that there's no one's reacting strongly to standing seam, especially because you can't really see it. So I think that my guess is you'd probably have support for that if you had to, but right now you have it designed as corrugated, so it'll be a matter of just getting that, making sure that that waterproofing detail will work as you go forward.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Uli.
In concept, I think generally, it sounds like we support a metal roof. The profile, I think, is probably less important than the overall material, as metal will be read as metal. From 500 feet away, you're not going to know if that's a 1/2 inch or 1.5 inches or 4 inches. So I support the metal roof. I have serious reservations as to whether or not the detail is going to work, but that needs to be solved.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Vice
I
Chair.
don't recall reading on the plans or anybody asking, but is it just a galvanized, is it a galvanized finish or is it a powder coated finish?
It's a powder coated, it is a color mass 45 paint system. It is also,
So it's got a paint finish on
It's
it
a
of some
paint
sort?
finish,
Okay.
yeah.
And what color is that?
it's a charcoal 17.
Okay.
And this is,
Oh, there it is, yeah.
it's a
Okay.
little bit darker, kind of in the same color scheme as what we
Quite close
have
to
now.
house color.
So it's not bright and shiny?
No, 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 not high polished.
Yeah.
All right. So it's sounding like there's generally support for this, so I can maybe take a shot at summarizing the comments for it, and then we can go back to the historian's report after. Okay, so I would ask this to other commissioners. Does anyone else feel differently or have thoughts about the window, the strip window comment?
Well, I think it would certainly make sense to space that pair apart so that all of them have the same space between them.
And then on the flip side of that, it's certainly in character with a mid-century modern to have them, the jams jammed together. So, there you
That's
go.
what I love about these boards.
On the flip
That's
flip side.
I like the repetition of having the three in a rhythm that works, suggested by the chair, but at the same time, they work with jam to jam.
Yeah.
It-
Go ahead, Commissioner
It's,
Levitt. and
it's tough to
Commissioner
tell from the plan whether or not there's actually a column indicated between the two windows.
There's
There's a door
a
jamb.
wall, there's a wall indicated between with the door jamb. So it's, somehow, there's gonna be something there, yeah, to get that.
Well, over one more.
Yeah.
To the right. Is it, there's not a, you don't think there's a column right there?
No.
All right.
Commissioner Ansberg, you?
Yeah, I think that, I rather prefer it the way that they've done it. I like the 2 and the 1. I think that's more interesting. But certainly, they could just slide the 1 over to get equal between. But I like it the way they've got it.
It's sounding like you were hearing some split as well. Another thing to consider might be to have actual, if those are aluminum, right? So maybe you butt them as close as you can and you do an aluminum piece in the middle and then an aluminum, so the whole thing reads as a one long aluminum strip window with the space in between. So that's an idea.
Too much advice.
That window bugs me. But
If
anyway.
I want to make sure I understand though, are you talking about the idea of putting a faux or just an aluminum divider between the two that are split and then doing a spacing and something similar so that it reads as one
long
single
strip.
long rectangle, even though the windows are separated?
That's right.
Aluminum mullions between them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because a mid-century modern, typically, they're going to either have a rhythm of structure that'll be the divider and then just glass in between, or they'll combine the whole thing as a ribbon window. Anyways, that's a very, very minor detail. And maybe striped awnings.
You'll never live that down.
Yeah, it goes without saying, totally. Okay, so it's, let me take a summary of comments. So first off, thank you very much for your work on this project. It is, in general, very supportable and a very sensitive project to the historic resource. So we thank you for that. The few comments to add were to study the railing, the 2x2, specifically the 2x2 horizontal members of the railing, with a suggestion of looking at hardwood or another way of designing that. The roof is supportable as proposed with a corrugated metal roof. And in general, any metal roof seems supportable, or a metal roof in general seems supportable. We are concerned with the waterproofing detail for the low-slope metal roof, and so to come back to us with that as the project goes forward, to making sure that that will work and that the material can stay. Gosh, there wasn't much more. Any other? Yeah. At least one commissioner thought that the windows could potentially be restudied or to be further studied to try to unify them into a single ribbon window look, strip window look. And I'll just leave it generally at that.
You got the comment on the 2x2s?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep, I got the 2x2s comment. All right, anything
And-
else?
Just one, we're here for the aesthetics, so but I do just want to say that, the dark roof concerns me a little bit just from heat. I know you're putting insulation on there. I had a house just like this, and I hate to tell you, we didn't notice any difference when we put the insulation on the roof, and then we did it in the floor, and we've got so many windows like that are a single pane. You're probably going to need to wear your woolies.
I already am.
But anyway, I just, from a sort of sustainability and environmental,
So we'll just say to look at the roof color
Color,
as part
yeah.
of the, part of that as well.
I mean, it's a pretty color, it's just that it's very
Yeah.
dark, and if you get
Yeah.
the heat up there, it could.
Could help. Okay, any other comments to add? And then, are there anything in the minor alteration findings or hillside design, project compatibility findings, those type of things? Should we just comment to them, or what would be the appropriate point at this point?
I don't think you necessarily need to comment on those at this time unless you want to comment about like mass bulk and scale, it being appropriate to the architecture, things like project compatibility. Accepting the conclusions of the report would kind of tackle the minor or the alterations findings, and then the Hillside Design District findings if you have any comments about it blending into the hillside. I can also pull up those findings.
Yeah, actually, that'd be great. Let's pull those up, and we'll just not go through them now, because it's sounding like this.
You're trying to make the meeting
Combine?
longer.
That's right. Well, in the end, it'll make the other meeting shorter, so, okay.
Chair Grumbine?
Yes.
Also, we didn't comment about the addition. They have a little
yeah,
tiny addition
little
at the
tiny
back, which
addition.
I don't have a
Is
problem with at all.
Everyone good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't have a problem with it.
okay. If it was 8 feet, it would be fine, but it's 9 feet, so. Way too much. Okay, so minor alterations, so the exterior alterations are being made primarily for and will substantially advance the restoration of the historic resource. Yeah, I think we're in agreement with that. And the alterations are consistent with Secretary of Interior standards. It could be consistent with that when we accept the report.
Going.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They're consistent with the design guidelines. Yes, and compatible with architectural character of the city and neighborhood. Yes. Yeah, definitely very compatible. Appropriate size, mass, bulk, and scale. Yes. Project compatibility findings, sensitivity to adjacent landmarks. Yes, it's sensitive to itself. And the public views the Ocean Mountains are not affected. And the use of open space and landscaping is acceptable. And then natural hillside design, so natural topography is all supportable as they're addressing the deck. And then building scale is appropriate. And its appearance is sensitive as well, and the colors are acceptable and supportable. All right, and so for any other comments that we want to add to this portion before I make a motion for this?
And pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. I would also recommend if you feel that this project is, when it comes back for PDA, if you feel like it's appropriate to continue to the consent calendar, staff would support that as well.
Okay,
I think I can handle it.
sounds good. All right, even that waterproofing detail?
Yeah.
Okay, so, so it sounds like, I think, it's sounding like people are supporting that. So if, we can then look for a motion with those comments
Make a
and
motion for
with,
an indefinite continuance to the consent calendar
Second.
all right, with those comments?
with those comments.
All right, and the second.
And general comments about the various conditions.
Yeah, and that would be for PDA and final.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second under discussion. Any other comments?
That's just for B,
Well,
correct?
That's for B. This is just for part B for the, all right.
The historians are not going to get off the hook that easily.
That's right.
We're not done with it.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes to 6B.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine,
Aye.
motion passes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll jump back to part A. So we had the questions, so now any comments? Any comments
I'll
on?
make a motion for approval of the acceptance of the report as
Now, I've got a comment first. I don't know if you want to.
Okay.
Yes, we'll let Commissioner Uli have.
Thank you.
All right.
First of all, excellent report, but I completely disagree with the conclusion. I don't find this as a good example of mid-century modern. I don't find it as a good example of the architect's work either. In its current condition, it is indistinguishable from the original design, except for the glazing that was mentioned. And I wouldn't see that this would rise to the level of designation, so I don't think it's eligible. So I disagree with the conclusions of the report.
Okay, so,
Oh, can I ask
Yeah.
a question? Do you, just a clarification, do you mean in its current condition, the way it is, but in its ultimate condition, so there's the ultimate condition and the current condition?
I understand.
Yeah, so,
Its current condition, I don't find it to be eligible. And I don't think remodeling something is a reason to make it eligible. It needs to be eligible, period, and I don't think there's enough there. The glazing around the living room is just not a strong enough element for me to say that even in its restored condition, it would make a great example of mid-century modern.
How about a good example?
Well, all right, so leave it on the inventory list. I just don't think it's eligible, so if this came before designation, my vote would be no.
Gotcha, okay. It's a good, it's one of those, it's one of those, I think it is, in my mind, sort of in response to that, my mind, I think it is in a sort of gray area. It's not like a lot of those, a lot of the project, not a lot, but a decent number of projects that we see that might be good enough to be historic resources or to be simply on the inventory is that other question, because it's not the potentials list anymore, it's the inventory which are contributing, but it's not that standalone, that higher level example. In my mind, if it is, and we've had this problem sometimes when there's demos, just tear apart, start tearing apart an example that may not have, it might not, with all of its pieces added on and changed and over time, and they want to restore it. If they, it's hard because we normally wouldn't designate something, but then they can't even restore it without designating it first, so that we get caught in this catch-22 sometimes. So, anyways, I just want to highlight the issue, not necessarily solve it. So.
I mean, just to follow up on that, I'm not opposed at all to the project. I think it's an excellent project. It's nice to bring back some of the elements that existed on the building. I'm just saying it's not, in my mind, it's not eligible to be a historic resource.
Okay. All right. Oh, is that, yes, oh, go ahead. It wasn't a
Sorry.
question, but sure, yes.
Yeah,
I think
I know it wasn't a
was
question.
a grenade.
But if it had occurred during the previous part
Yes.
of we would have responded.
Yes.
I think one thing to think about in Santa Barbara is the relatively slender, as Pam was saying, examples of mid-century domestic architecture. It was not really a favored style here. Paul A. Green is a significant figure in the heritage of the city's architecture. This is an extremely modest example of his work, but it was done by him, for him. It does embody many of the character-defining features of the style. It's not a stellar example, and that's why we put it in the place of a structure of merit, which is usually where we assign, in our opinion, assign buildings that have merit, but they don't rise to the level of a landmark. Like there were a few modernist structures on the, I think on the Riviera, I can't think of the one that burnt down a few years ago. So there are very few. It just wasn't favored here. You see more in Montecito and Hope Ranch, and so there are fewer here, especially in the San Roque neighborhood, which is very traditional. And we feel the inventory is so small that when we remove these, they're very modest, but they're sort of modest, in my personal opinion, the way that people used to treat the Spanish colonial revival, the sort of working middle-class houses, which are very simple, they're modest, they don't have any bells or whistles, but they're part of the historic fabric of a neighborhood. And this one sort of stands out because it's one of the few in the area that is in the modernist vein. Yeah. So that was our reason for assigning the structure of merit. And in regard to the lack of integrity in some areas, which we acknowledged in the report, the Secretary of the Interior Standards and all the guidance put out by the National Park Service does speak to the ability to rehabilitate and restore sufficient elements to bring the building into a greater consistency with its historic appearance, which enhances its integrity. And we kind of see that this type of project is that type.
It's a diamond in the rough.
And I just wanted to reiterate basically what Tim said. I was basically thinking too, there are very few examples of mid-century modernism in Santa Barbara. And it did start off as a modest studio. So we feel bringing it back to, its character-defining features that it had, that we felt that it was certainly merits, a structure of merit status, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Chair Grumman?
Yes, Commissioner Ensberg.
You know what, I would just add to this, I hear what everybody's saying, but the way I see this, these houses were very inexpensive, and they were kind of, they were from the, mid-century sort of case study movement of indoor-outdoor living, Southern California, and all of that. And so they were, they have the big windows, not like the Spanish colonial style. And they were very modest, they were small, and they were rather inexpensively built. We had one that the original architect we had come over, and he said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it's still standing." So I hear what you're saying, and I think that because of these big windows and how the design connects it to within this tree, I feel like it is worthy, and that these types of buildings need to be brought up, because otherwise they will just disintegrate, because they weren't built out of stone, and they weren't plaster, they were sticks. So I don't know, I respect what Commissioner Uli is saying as well, but I think it has this, that big, great room looking into the tree must be fantastic, so.
All right.
If you look at Richard Schindler's work, plywood was one of his major materials, and so, yeah, it was very, I did work on the Schindler catalog, yes, yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, you've sold me. Sorry, Commissioner Uli.
That's all right. I don't have to win them all. I can disagree. At the most, I think maybe it's on the inventory list. To me, it just doesn't rise to a structure of merit. The lower we put that bar, why not just take the phone book and designate them all? Yeah. So, we've got to have a cutoff somewhere, and I just think that this is not, for me, not rising to the level.
I challenge my fellow commissioner to find a phone book.
Well, see, that's why you can put them all everything in the phone book.
Well, you used to work for the phone company. I'll come to you first.
All right. So, any other comments? Let's try to wrap this up and make
I agree with Mr. Uli in his interpretation of what we see here. The fact that we have very few buildings that are of this type in Santa Barbara doesn't make it necessary that we designate them historic or whatever. And the fact that there's a lot of glass on one end of the building doesn't make it a mid-century modern either, in my opinion. So no, I think that it's a building worth remodeling. It's a building that will endure with or without a designation. But I agree, we've got to be able to draw a line someplace and decide that we're going to look for the best and recognize the best, and not just recognize everything or something because it's different.
Okay. Why don't we just...
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask the question, if we accept the report, does that mean that we're wanting it to move forward with designation as a structure of merit, or just that the report says it could be?
It just means it will be added to the inventory.
Right. So I will restate my motion to approve the report as submitted.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay.
Well,
Under discussion?
As I understand it, the report's conclusion is that it be a structure of merit. And accepting the report is accepting that conclusion, I assume.
Just found it eligible.
No, because they could have it in the report, they could find it eligible to be a landmark, but that's not.
Yeah.
To the chair, though, I would, if for commissioners who do not believe and don't agree with the conclusion that it is eligible to be designated as a structure of merit, I would advise you to vote no then on the report, because if it does come back as a structure of merit.
Yeah, and you voted yes for that, yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good point. Okay. Good point. Any other discussion?
You're the designation subcommittee, so.
Yeah. Don't worry, there's 3.
They all show up.
All right. Yes, that's true. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Butler?
No.
Commissioner McClure?
No.
Commissioner Dordan?
No.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Linvik,
No.
Commissioner Uli,
No.
Commissioner, or Vice Chair House?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye. So,
Motion
does not.
fails.
Okay, so we have a failed motion. Now we have, so there's under discussion, what?
To the chair,
Yes.
a possible solution is you could accept the report with the condition to revise the conclusion in phase one to read it is eligible as a historic resource rather than eligible for listing as a structure of merit. If that motion or that theoretical motion were to fail, that would kind of change the trajectory of the project, because if it's not eligible as a historic resource, it's not eligible for if it's not placed on the historic resources inventory, then it's no longer under HLC's purview, so
Yeah.
then it would
Okay.
go to a single
So,
family.
That will lighten our load a little bit.
So, and that, so then, is that option the same as us, putting it on the inventory?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make
It's
sure.
really the inventory and that eligible as historic resources is for the purposes of CEQA.
Okay. So, does someone want to try with another motion,
Apparently not.
as opposed to a structure of merit? Or sorry, yeah, as opposed to a structure of merit.
I think the motion would be to recommend that the report's conclusions be revised so that it's eligible to be on the historic inventory, but not suggest that it's eligible for a structure of merit. I think that's the
If that's a
recommendation.
motion, I'll second it.
To the chair, point of order. So if you can either continue the report to return, in that case, I would recommend amending your previous motion to continue the project to come back to full commission, just so the full commission can review the report in.
Wait, so hold on. Just, so it seems like we have two options left. One option is to ask the report writers to amend their report to say that it's a historic resource for the inventory, that, at that level, that's the lower level.
Yeah,
which
and that would be accepting the report with the condition.
With, as long as they were good with it and we were good with it, that would be with accepting it on the lower level inventory. The other option is to say we don't think it even should belong in the historic inventory, and that was our findings, right? And in that case, we're not accepting the report, and we're just
And
doing
it goes to ARB,
single-family design.
single-family design, yeah.
Is that true?
So when
Yes.
there's a disagreement among experts, I don't know.
Well, I don't know if they're gonna,
Yeah,
I don't know
so,
if anybody wants to.
well, why don't we try it for the first motion
That's
first?
usually on
Or
the-
first question to the
That's on
report
the-
writers. Would you be acceptable in amending your report to have it as a historic resource at the, on the inventory?
That would be acceptable.
Okay, so let's try that first, and then we'll try that.
That's my motion then, to accept the report with the condition that the conclusion be that it is eligible to be on the historic resource inventory rather than eligible as listing as a structure of merit.
All right, is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Jordan seconds it. Under discussion, any discussion? All right, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Insberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
He just left.
He's absent.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Linvik,
No.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so do we want to take a little,
We have one project left.
we have one project
I'd
left.
say
Do you want to just do
go
it?
for it.
Yeah.
All right, let's, everyone plow through.
No, it's not.
The last piece of beachfront.
Oh, thank
All
you.
right. Okay, now we have item 7. This is a continued item for concept review, 1733 Mountain Avenue. This is historic structure of merit constructed in 1930 in the English vernacular style.
This-
Proposal
yeah,
for a
this-
122 square foot first floor addition and a 592 square foot second floor addition to the rear of an existing 998 square foot single unit residence. Project includes addition of a dormer window on the front elevation and raising the side facing gable 5 foot 2 inches from 18 foot 10 to 24 foot 0. Removal of an as-built shed, new doors, rear windows, roofing, second story balcony, smooth stucco exterior lighting, and restoration of original windows. The proposed total of 2,200 square feet on a 5,100 square foot lot is 92% of the maximum required floor to lot area ratio. No final appealable action will be taken at this meeting. Project compatibility findings and major alteration findings will be required for the project design approval. Project was last reviewed on August 2nd, 2023. All right, welcome. Okay, so let's turn this on for you. All
And
right. if you
to
could-
the chair and the rest
go
of the commission, staff has a brief announcement. So this project came before you as a project design approval. Then staff noted that upon resubmittal that the project is over the maximum 85% required FAR. So it's no longer, it's not eligible for project design approval until the commission waives the floor to lot, or until the commission can comment on whether or not they want to see these supplementary materials for being over 85% of the floor to lot area ratio. So just keep that in mind when you're reviewing the project, and then as part of your motion, you should either choose to waive these additional materials or request them, and then specify which ones that you would like to see. And then I also have the August 2nd minutes available.
Okay,
The
yeah.
reason it's
right.
a required FAR is because it's a small lot size as opposed to.
Yes,
being maybe,
our,
what,
the floor to
15,000?
lot area ratio calculator takes a lot of different things into consideration. So it's kind of based on lot size, on how many floors, the zone.
Yeah, my name is Todd Stockwell. I'm from Two Stock Design Studio. I'm here with the owner, Graham Lee Wingate.
Hi.
Hi.
My wife was here, but had to pick up our kid.
Ah.
So, spirit with her second one
Perfect.
away.
I was looking to see where she was. She was
She had
right
to go
here.
get- Yeah, daycare.
Okay.
All right, if you could read off the minutes.
So the motion was to continue indefinitely with the following comments. One, the commission thanks the applicant for their restoration of some of the elements of the historic resource and hopes for continued diligence on the design so it can become acceptable. Two, the commission is split on whether a dormer on the front elevation is acceptable or not. The commission believes that any dormer added should be more vertical with a gable roof, or the applicant shall present clear evidence that shed dormers exist within Santa Barbara in Tudor or English vernacular architecture. Three, changing the front roof pitch is not acceptable. The commission prefers that the back addition to be done in a way in which the new rear roof is not poking up over the top. The existing ridge and pitch on front roof gable should stay as is. 4, the roof slope on the addition should have a steeper pitch to match the English vernacular style. 5, consider including a flat roof portion to connect the addition. 6, restudy the back balcony and develop a more appropriate English vernacular way of treating the balcony. Restudy the second floor cantilever overhang. Look for corbelled cantilevers in the English vernacular style to use as inspiration for the possibility of eliminating the cantilever altogether. 7, restudy the corner windows on the southwest perspective to include more plaster between or study a different design. 8, restudy the horizontal window on the southeast perspective to be more historically appropriate in shape. 9, integrate light fixtures as the project goes forward.
All right. Okay, so welcome. Why don't you walk us through your drawings and especially showing us how you answered our comments from before and anything else new with the design.
Okay, so are you guys looking at the same screen I'm looking at?
I believe so. and we're
A0.0?
seeing your cursor move.
Okay.
Yeah.
But up there, it's the comments.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So actually, having the comments was helpful, but
Yeah.
I think the easiest way to kind of address the comments is to go right to the sheet with the 3D imagery on it, because it helps to show all of the various elements. So along the rear, I can address the rear cantilevered
Can you zoom in?
comment.
If you hit the Z key and draw a marquee around what you want to enlarge, that's the easiest way. There you go.
Okay,
And then you'll hit Control 0 to go back to full sheet.
got it. I think. Okay. So what I did was went ahead and eliminated the entire rear cantilever per recommendations of the commission, and brought it straight down. And then I only now have the cantilevered and corbelled balcony coming off the master bedroom above. As well, along the side elevation, I brought back the two gabled pitched elements along that side elevation and married that with the rear straight wall connection. There actually should be a little line right here coming down. I don't know why it's not there, but it disappeared, so. And then I re-studied, and this is an existing window below. This is the window of the hallway, the stair landing above. And then this is the smaller window for some air, light and air in the master bedroom. Let's see, Control zero?
Control 0.
Bam. Okay, and then I can go to the front elevation, I think is smart. That was Z again?
Yeah.
So in the front elevation, the reality of the situation is that if I didn't want to try to create something that looked like it was added to this house, even though your guidelines kind of explain that that's a possibility, that sometimes something gets added to something over time, and that original design, that original historic flavor is somehow maintained. I can't wrap my head around putting a second story on this project without raising the ridge to accommodate that, with it not looking like an alien landed on the back of the house as a second story. So I'm proposing in this latest design to take the ridge up to allow for, prior to this, we had the roof going up above the ridge. You could see it from the street because it was a little dog ear that stuck up, and everybody commented that they were not in favor of that. And I agree. And so the idea is to take the front ridge up a little bit higher, create the dormer that we have created, and I have done some studies, and with the help of your historian, we did find some examples of the vernacular that do have dormers in them. In fact, shed dormer. I can show it on a ladder sheet where we found one in San Roque area that has the shed dormer in a very similar situation. And so this front dormer addresses hopefully your comments and is more in keeping with the overall historic flavor of the building. It is an added element to the front elevation, and I recognize that. But the owners have voiced to me that they really would love to have light and air on the second story on this facade. So that's what's driving that element as well. And then on the rear elevation, this is the other side, shows where the roofs kind of tuck into each other and what happens in this whole kind of valleyed area, which is going to be on the back side of the house, not visible from anywhere. So I really don't see a real issue with that, other than some kind of cricketing, pitching that will need to occur for drainage. And then we were asked to study these windows and separate them a little bit and give a little more space, which I did. And then this gives you another view of that cantilevered balcony off the rear, and how this whole area is no longer cantilevered across the back of the house. It comes all the way to the ground to finish the statement. And here's the other elevation that kind of hopefully shows that even with the higher ridge, it tucks behind these two architectural elements on the front facade. So you really, there's going to be a little tiny bit of an extension here that's also kind of driven by the solar ordinance, so that we maintain the solar ordinance angle along this elevation. But really won't see much of this whole second-story ridge element until you turn the corner around the facade and get to the rest of the house. I guess the list, what else do I need to address on the list? Maybe we could go back. Oh, this is a quick study here that just shows that the existing house is at basically 19 feet off of grade, and with a typical 8-foot plate and a 14 to 18-inch floor assembly, even with a flat roof, we're really pushing the ability to even have a second story on the house. So I'm looking to, hopefully everybody agrees that if a second story is to occur, that it needs to have enough height and integrity and work with the architecture, not look like something just was applied to the existing architecture. And then here's the example that we found in San Roque.
Can you zoom in there?
Yeah, that Nicole found. Let's see. It's Z.
Yeah, but it's already on that, so you don't have to keep doing that.
So this is an example of that same vernacular in the San Roque neighborhood that has that similar dormer idea on it.
And I thought you had another example as well.
I do. That other example I just found on my own, but that one's a shed roof for reference. And I don't believe this example's in Santa Barbara. But that's another example of the English vernacular with a shed roof dormer on it. So I originally came with the shed roof dormer and then went to the
hipped roof.
The hipped roof, correct.
Okay.
And so, and there are other examples on the street that are second-story additions to this same historic vernacular that I personally think kind of missed the mark. But
Yeah.
I feel like our design is really trying to be, sympathetic to the original design and hopefully integrate in such a way that it doesn't look like something was applied to the original house. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that, then, do you want to just zoom out and then kind of flip through, just make sure you hit all your pages?
Yeah.
Maybe go to the floor plan to show us how much addition there is that's changing the FAR.
The original cantilever was this whole area right here, where that was not. In fact, I haven't even really updated this little bathroom here with that new area. So the second floor didn't change. It was just this cantilevered section here, which we brought down to the
Which you
ground.
filled in,
Correct.
basically.
Correct,
So
because
you
the
were-
whole thing was cantilevered across the back.
You were
and
below required FAR on your first proposal?
I think we were still slightly above.
The-
We're still slightly above.
To the
but-
chair and the rest of the commission, the applicant was still slightly above. That was a mistake that staff made to miss that the first
Okay.
round.
And then, do you have the roof plan?
I didn't draw the new hipped gable here. That's the only change. I still have that little shed roof gable.
Can you zoom in? All right. All right. Any other, okay, yeah, actually, yeah, if you can keep going through those. Just all-
Yeah, you guys also requested to see the existing elevations next to the new, so I created a sheet that did that
Very helpful, thank you.
and shows you how the mass changes in order to allow a second story. Again, it's not worth it to try to get something, to put in a second story that really everybody's gonna have to duck and cover to get to areas, so.
Sure, yeah.
So, we obviously love this house, and we love the style, and we came to you about the structure of merit, and we're happy with where we got there. I grew up in the neighborhood. My parents live on Chino and Pedregosa. My dad was a builder. We got another one on the way, so we just feel like we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place because it's a place we want to live, but there are very few houses that can accommodate a growing family in the neighborhood. And when we talk with Todd, we're trying to get creative on what makes the most sense, and we've seen some creative ways, but it feels like if we're going to invest and make it our family home, we want to do it with the space that makes it feel livable, that makes it feel bright, that it gets the, all the things that we love about being in Santa Barbara, which is doors open, windows open, the cross breeze, all of that happening.
And so you don't have to wear a bicycle helmet to protect your head.
Yeah, exactly. And going up, and he's already gotten really creative with the stairwell and just making it work. So I appreciate any feedback on I think our concern is that we don't get the head height where it doesn't feel livable, and it makes us rethink where we have to live.
Right.
So I just wanted to add that context where we aren't trying to make it massive, and we're just trying to make it livable for a family of four. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And can you keep going through the rest of the pages
Sure.
there?
Sorry, it's messy in the backyard.
Here's another two-story example that kind of didn't hit the target in my eyes, but what's interesting about this two-story example is that with this second story set back from this whole front facade, that kind of does follow one of your guidelines in the way that you describe additions. The situation with our project is that the yard itself is not a deep lot. It's a kind of a shallow lot. So for us to push back far enough to not see anything beyond that front facade, for one thing, I can't imagine it not looking like it was an addition, and I'm trying to avoid that. And then also, it would eat up a lot of more real estate in the rear yard, which we just didn't want to.
Can we see the site plan again?
Sure.
If you could blow that up. Do you have an aerial that shows this lot compared to others around it?
I don't think I do.
Okay.
Not on this, in this set.
Or on your previous plan set that's on the other tab?
Try to pull it up on maps as well.
So we could look, maybe on Google Maps.
Yeah.
Do I do that here?
Well, zoom in on that, where you are right there.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're all pretty consistent.
There's a double
Some are
lot.
bigger,
Yeah.
some are smaller.
Yeah, and I live right See that blue?
Uh-huh.
That's why it shows that. And I likewise love the neighborhood, and I have two college kids that I just got through college.
Yeah. All right. Anything else before we go into public comment? Okay. We have no one in the room, so I'll go to virtual public comment.
We don't have any virtual participants at this time. We also did not receive any general written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right. Great. To the commission for questions. Any questions? What questions?
Oh, I thought I had a question.
I have a question. So I'm just trying to understand how the roof works. Can you go to the roof plan and especially the back, that clipped gable? I'm just trying to.
Zoom in on that.
That's not.
This is.
Hold on a second.
Right there.
I don't know
This is
that,
not drawn correctly.
I don't
Yeah.
know that this is drawn correctly, correct? That's correct.
Yeah, because the model looks
No,
like you
you're
have a
right.
flat
There's
roof.
a flat section right here that
Yeah.
I don't have reflected in the roof plan.
Yeah, it's kind of a quasi jerkin head thing
Yeah.
going on to it.
Yeah.
And then it should be flat.
Exactly.
It's a
And so that
mansard
was
jerk.
not, that was not picked up. That
Yeah.
was not picked
Okay. Okay, so the renderings and elevations are correct, right?
up. Correct.
Okay.
They are correct. And this,
So that,
this right here shows you that flat section you guys are
Yeah.
referencing.
gotcha.
I just didn't update the roof plan with that in it.
Got
So
it.
I need to catch that.
Okay. Okay, good. I thought I was going crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
at least
you're
that
right.
doesn't prove it. I still could be
You
going
guys
crazy.
You might be going crazy, but the drawing is right.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that, I think, was my only question. Any other?
Yeah, I had a question, thank you.
Commissioner Ansberg.
So in the elevations, we were just looking at on this, the southeast perspective. How high are the doors, the French doors that are on the little balcony?
Up here?
Mm-hmm.
6'8".
Are they, on the elevations, they are aligning with that window over on the left, but here they're popping up. So they look like they're higher.
Actually, the model is more accurate, so I do need to catch that. The windows, in order to occur in that master bath, did need to drop because
You're
the
matching the
plate
one to
height
the-
pulled down, that's correct.
Mhm. So those doors are 6'8", and then that window is actually
Yeah,
below
that.
that.
It's got a much lower head height, but there's actually a bathtub behind that, so
Mm-hmm.
it kind of works out.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, a question.
Yes,
Those
yes.
outriggers supporting the balcony, are those wood?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we expect.
And along with that line, is there any particular ones, historic ones that you were looking at as examples of a cantilever balcony with those?
Not so much. I did find one. I could provide a photograph if you need to see that followed this idea. And this was also kind of more per the comments of the commission from our last meeting. Because I had the whole entire balcony.
Yeah, cantilever. Yeah,
so.
gotcha. Okay.
I
Any
have a question.
questions?
I swallowed wrong here. When I look at the floor plan on 820, the second floor, if I'm understanding this, the front dormer is that area where you have a hallway. Is that correct?
Right here, correct. That's correct.
And
That's where the little dormer pops out.
and I see a planter there.
That planter's been removed too. so
I see.
that's a
So
good
the
point.
planter's not there.
The planter's not there.
And I see the dormer appears to be inset from adjoining wall work, and I don't understand this.
Can you zoom in on that plan?
You're right about that too, and again, the dormer itself was an item where we hadn't yet gotten direction that you could approve it a dormer on the front facade. So I didn't yet provide the newer design.
So what I'm seeing as I kind of look at this is that your plan is cut low on the elevation or where the window is. So some of the wall or the roof is standing proud of the window line, but if you were to cut your plan higher, the dormer projects out. Am I kind of
You're
understand?
right.
Yeah,
You're
all right.
That's a
So,
good catch, and that
so
has
the, when I look at the plan, your need for that wide a dormer, I mean, you said, well, we want to get air circulation, so on and so forth, but the need for that wide a dormer is not part of the bedroom, it's part of the hallway, and it certainly could be narrower and be maybe more appropriate from the standpoint of what you view from the street or from the exterior elevation. That's a question.
That's for me.
Yeah.
Is there a reason it has to
My
be that big?
response to that would be that the width of the glazing there is to respond to the fact that that's a window seat and like a daybed idea.
I see.
So the whole idea about that is that you could sit with a book in the rain or something nice and have enough glazing along that window seat so that that's a nice spot to sit. But you're right, that's still set in per the previous shed dormer that I had. I just wasn't, I hadn't yet gotten direction from the commission that
Well,
we could put a dormer on the front.
I think that, my general concern about the.
Is it a question?
No.
Thanks, yep. All right, questions? No, I was waiting for his question mark. Okay, any other questions?
I have one, yeah. Thank you. So in this washer, the laundry area there, how are you going to use that space to the left? Or if you're facing the washer dryer,
Right
and
in
then,
here,
how are you going to use that?
Okay, you're right. Right in here, this really tucks down into almost nothing. Because that's part of that whole pitched roof. So this becomes a little storage kind of area, and whatever we can put in cabinets.
dead
under
dog.
desk. But right here, we're up. We're up high enough right here to have the washer dryer, and then the little window above it, which I've got on that elevation.
The same is true for that storage space on the left of the.
Correct, that's gonna be
I mean, it's next to nothing, right?
Sliced off storage space, yeah.
That's one of the biggest challenges. I think our goal was to feel like we were confident that we could do a second floor before dialing in all of the pieces. I think the window size of the dormer is like, how much light can we get? And the idea of the doors is likely they won't be closed ever, just to be honest, right? It was just having the opportunity should we need it. But there are some, details there on, we're trying to maximize storage space because we basically have zero in the house. And those are refinements that we would definitely work with Todd to make, to maximize. But
As well, if these double doors going into the master are a multi-light glazed solution, they would get light streaming into the master even with the doors closed, so.
All right, other questions? All right, let's roll into comments.
So my comment, I was continuing my thinking, this is as a building stands right now, as the residence stands right now, it's a very pleasant building. It's petite, it's steeply pitched roofs, it's, got a lot of nice things about it, and that's why it's a structure of merit. But what's happened is you've tried to put a lot onto this house, second floor and all this stuff, and the house no longer is that unique, pleasant character, in my opinion. It's lost that uniqueness and quaintness, and it's, I'm not saying you can't have a second floor, but I think you've got to make some compromises, and, one may be that you don't get as wide a window at the dormer in the front that you can sit and read the book in. I mean, you got to give somebody to get something, in my opinion.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Uli, then Vice Chair House.
A great improvement from the last project you brought before us, so I appreciate you working to get some of these refinements. The back balcony corbels are a little bit of an issue for me. I'm not quite sure they really fit. They need some kind of either detail on them and maybe a rhythm of them going from one side to the next and not just two on the end. So that's an issue for me. The dormer, I don't have a problem with putting a dormer on the front of the building. I get the rationale for it. When it does rain here, it would be nice to sit there and read a book. But I think it's just a tad too wide. So, if it could just narrow up, a little bit, I think the scale of it would feel better. I'm not bothered by the rise of the ridge because it reads as one ridge now and not something else that we had a problem with last time you were here. And while that might change the general height of the building from the street from what we see today, I don't think it's really that big of an impact. I'm not as concerned about how you deal with the roof on the back of the building because your neighbors behind you, if they can see you, and you are going to see the back of the building and not everybody else. So I'm not as concerned there. So if you can resolve those roof elements, I'd be happy with them. And generally like where you've taken it.
All right. Your comment, Vice Chair House?
Well, my comments pretty much mirror Commissioner Uli's. When we saw this last time, I was like, this is a real challenge. And I'm really amazed how you've pulled it together, and it's really much improved. I struggle a little bit with the fact that it's a structure of merit, so this is no longer the same structure of merit. Its character has changed quite a bit, but then, I want to be amenable to a family growing in their house and making improvements to it, and is so far superior to a lot of the other examples you showed in the neighborhood. So
it's SF to be.
What's that? Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
See, I mean,
the two issues I want to
don't say.
focus on would be the balcony in the back, and I agree with the comment that I think that they need to have a little bit of an OG cut to them and be plaster. That's, I think, what you normally see, and more of them, and maybe not two at the ends, but just a regular spacing, something like that. And then the dormer, I don't know that I wouldn't prefer a shed dormer better than a gabled or hipped dormer. Whatever minimizes it more, and it definitely needs to be narrower. It just can't be that big. It needs to be subservient. And it looks like it kind of matches the living room window downstairs, and it doesn't need to do that. But, study it whether a shed might make
I
it.
was going for kind of a subordinate
Yeah.
idea with a similar breakup of the glazing.
Yeah, and I think if the picture in between was smaller, but the flankers were the same, that would be fine. I mean, another alternative is have two smaller dormers, but then that doesn't work with your window seat idea, and I don't know that that's really an improvement. So I think just making it narrower.
You could always just put one kid in each dormer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The timeout.
I see you have it pushed back into the roof a little bit, which I don't know if that's a great idea because of how you detail the roofing coming down around where it comes in front of it, but maybe that's not a problem, I don't know. These are comp shingles.
Yeah, and they have that kind of curved
Rolled
fascia,
around,
rolled
yeah.
fascia detail
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the existing building,
yeah.
which we'll do.
So I'll leave that to you
We're gonna
to-
do that same detail.
Yeah. So those would be my comments.
Mr. Chair, I support that shed on the dormer idea. I think that would make it, help it disappear a little.
Okay, other comments? Commissioner Jordan, sure, okay, go ahead.
What percentage, can you give me a gauge of what would make?
25%.
25% less?
Something like that.
So make it 75% of what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to the right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I wanna make sure I'm fully understanding what smaller means.
Might be 22.5, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, Commissioner Jordan?
Yes, First of all, a lot of progress made on this, and I'm finding it more supportable. I have the same reservations that have been expressed about the corbels supporting the balcony in the back, the width of the dormer window. I do think that new drawings will make it easier for us to be persuaded the next time we see it. I'll also say I'm very sympathetic to the issue of a growing family that wants to stay in Santa Barbara. And I found that this, like several projects today, really brings up some intriguing issues about what constitutes a structure of merit, where do we draw the line, and what about what happens once a building is a structure of merit? Are we freezing it too much? So I don't have an answer for those, but it's been an interesting afternoon in terms of some very tricky issues for us to navigate. But this is headed in the right direction.
All right, Commissioner Ensberg?
Okay, thank you. Agree with pretty much everything everyone else has said. It's much improved and it's looking good. Very sensitive to how do you take this house and how do you mush it around and make it work and not feel like you've got to keep the proportions of the rooms. This is if you have a room that's really big, it's like, right now, I'm telling you, this is an addition. You can tell that because of the proportions aren't matching the rest of the house. Now, that's on the interior, so like I'm noticing that the master bedroom is quite large. And you might have opportunities in that room to possibly do closets, maybe flanking on either side of those doors, and then you could pick up some space in that bathroom, that closet could be, you can move things around there and use that space possibly more wisely. And so I just mentioned that because that's to me, it's just, it feels too big. So, and then onto the dormer, I think that it definitely needs to be narrower, and maybe we could go back to the pictures that you had. I would like to see it be a gable and a steep pitched gable, so it's like the house of three gables, basically. You have the two on the side, and then you have that one on the front. So both of these are definitely smaller. If you look at how the window on the first floor, in your design, it's matching. In this design, the upper one, it's much smaller. And also on the other one, the one below it. So I would rather see that white of, if we go back to your elevations or even the rendering. So what that white stucco does in contrast to the big roof. So down here, yes. If you had a gable, narrower, and then a gable, now you're getting this really pretty shape of the, that's mimicking the other two gables, instead of this hip that is just blending in with the roof, if you can follow what I'm saying.
I think you can.
Do you want to say something, Mr. Lenvick?
Commissioner Ensberg, why don't you have your comments, and I'll try to
Okay,
summarize
maybe you can say, so that I would like to see something more mimicking the pitch and having that shape be repeated again above the gable. I think that would be really lovely. And then other than that, then I think it's coming together. And then I agree with what others have said.
All right, great. Commissioner McClure, and then Commissioner Butler. Anything? Commissioner Butler, did you have anyone?
For brevity's sake.
Yeah.
Overall, great work, lots of good progress. I too had the same reaction to the dormer window, so I would just say address it smaller, because it does look like it's the same size as the window below, correct?
It's very close. It's
Close enough that it gives that sense that.
Maybe like a 3/4 scale of the one below.
Yeah,
right
because it
now, but
overstates
maybe
the
I
importance
goes-
of that
yeah,
gable.
definitely
It
go
overstates it.
smaller.
That would be my one comment.
Yeah. Sure.
On that comment, it could also be the window, in proportion to the whole house. So you have, big windows and small windows, right? That's kind of the the recipe. So you could still, you could have more white, you know, you could have more white and a smaller window, so it feels like a dormer window, a small window with white on either side, which then on the inside gives you a plate, you get the nice light in there. You could still have maybe enough room, maybe it could be like 4 feet or something like that, and then you would still have room on either side of the window for art, you know, thinking about how you're going to decorate this house. And then you get more of this white. This is what I'm interested in, is the white and the triangular shape.
So, since I'll wrap up the last comments and I'll comment on the dormers in particular. So while I think that the gable idea first, and then actually the split window idea as well, I think might be worth exploring. One of the
split window.
sorry, splitting the window into two. Was that what you were saying?
I was just saying a smaller window, and then
Oh,
surrounded by the stucco.
gotcha, okay.
And then going up into a point.
Yeah,
That would
with the
be
gable.
really pretty.
So regarding that, I would say that I was following with the other in terms of shed or even gable, but very much narrower. But the only thing that I don't like about the gable idea is that it's such a strong move. That white is such a strong move, and because this isn't like, this is the front of the house and this is an added piece. While if it was started from scratch, that might be a good design move to go that direction. The only problem in my mind is it's calling attention to itself even more so. And so it sort of starts to compete a little bit with, as a added feature to the front of the house. Seems like that would be at least a little less supportable historically, although even if it is a little nicer aesthetically, if it did be when you was when you studied it. And to that effect, another way of adding another twist or another potential for it is to minimize, basically making them two small windows, a little bit wider than the current ones in terms of those side lights, and two separate dormers. And if you did it as a shed, you could do it as almost no plaster, which actually could be very diminutive in terms of just not showing up at all, but still getting two small windows as opposed to one very large window. So you can break them into two dormers as a way of trying to. Two shed dormers that separates with some roof. That's also done as part of this, but that would be another thing to look at that might minimize things, but also get more light. But now you're having two elements on there. So there's kind of all these things are sort of give and take with it. Or there's pros and cons with it seems. But the gable thing, the one thing I would comment on with that is that is the most attention-seeking type. And so, anyways, but it seems like, as a quick summary, I don't think we're going to agree on which the right dormers are.
If I could just say, also, one of the reasons why I like that is because they've added a second floor. The roof is like way huger than it was before. So now we've got this big, massive roof going up. So that's why I'm saying that this would be a good way to kind of bring it into the language, but reduce the effect of the roof.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that we don't have any of those in front of us right now, in terms of to get a straw vote for which one would win. I think the reality is we're going to have a difference of opinion on what dormers would be best. So I'll try, and for the hopes of keeping things moving. Yeah, Vice Chair House.
I think, if you return next time with some variations on your model, it's easy to plug various different things on there.
And then we can just see what the most supportable. Yeah,
exactly.
To the death.
I want to see the variations.
Yeah.
He's going to approve the variations before I bring them.
And I would say if it were a gable element, which, I thought about, but I think that dormer would have to be 50% the size it is.
Yeah, it'll have to be tight in there. That's why I was also thinking it might end up being two small ones, only because if you go that direction, because it would all need to be.
Because I think it needs to be subservient to the smaller of the two existing gables.
But then is it a house of too many gables?
Yeah.
45 gables.
Yeah.
The house of four
Don't
gables.
paint it green, that'll be the house of green gables.
The house of white gables.
Yeah.
A gable for each person who lives there.
There we go. Okay, so let me try. Okay, I'll try to summarize. Okay, so.
FAR, we gotta talk about.
Oh, yeah, FAR. Is everyone, quickly, I didn't hear anything about seeming to be too large, mass, bulk scale, that kind of stuff.
don't have a problem with
Is everyone comfortable with the FAR?
I'm comfortable with it because we suggested that he solve the problem of the rear elevation by bringing the
We
wall down.
created the problem.
So we created the problem for the applicant. It seems that now we can't backtrack and say, well, okay, well, you can't have it now. I'm comfortable with it. And I don't necessarily know if we've got to have story poles and all that other stuff to help. It's just simply the same form that hit the
Yeah,
ground.
the irony is it was cantilevered, so it's the same mass. Like,
Yeah.
the only difference.
Nothing's really changed. It's just you got more square footage.
Anyone else feel differently? Everyone in support of the FAR? Okay.
You could shrink the bedroom back. I mean, there is that option. You could shrink it back a little bit and then
If-
pull
if
the
we
other. As
actually-
long as it's the same wall going down, you could shrink that back. I think there's room there. But again,
is
you're
there a
trying to
need
get
for that?
space
Yeah,
for your
is it-
family, so.
I don't see any need.
And on the FAR question is this an exploding too large of house? And doesn't seem like it. Okay. So, so let me try to give a shot at summarizing, because no final appeal will actually made, but the project compatibility findings, major alteration findings will be made. So it's sounding like we can probably make those, so I'll at least comment to them so that we have it ready for next time. First, thank you for your continued work on this, and it is a great improvement from the last design. And as we say, it's heading in the right direction with a few additional comments. So on the back southeast elevation, the balcony corbels or supports need to be continue to be studied. There was a couple suggestions, whether doing it in wood or doing it in plaster. I would say look to some good historic precedents for this. It's a little hard to find, in my mind, balconies for these houses, but look for somewhere that'll be the closest. There's plenty in Spanish Revival, the same era, and there's some mixing and matching, but but make sure it's not too Spanish. So really try to look for ones of this language, of this English vernacular. And whether they're in wood or in plaster. And look at the spacing of those as well, because that'll be important. All right. The roof plan to be updated and make sure that it's worked as well.
And I would suggest all the drawings need to be
Yeah, that's true.
updated.
All the drawings updated per the,
Those little bits that
yeah.
were not caught.
Yeah. And then for the main event, the dormer, the dormer in the front needs to be, continue to be studied, to be restudied, with suggestions of narrowing the dormer by 25% or more. Look at doing a shed roof as an alternative as well from the hip roof. And then also to study a gabled solution as well, with some commissioners feeling the gable is more appropriate and will help break up the mass. As part of that, if the windows are very narrow, to study with two narrow dormers as opposed to one larger dormer. Okay, and any other comments on that before I
To
comment
the
on that?
chair, could you also just formally include the comment that the commission is waiving the FAR
Oh,
supplemental
yes, and
requirements?
and also that we would be waiving the FAR requirements. All right, any other additional comments before I go into the project compatibility findings? Or at least comment on the project compatibility findings? All right, so let's go to the project compatibility findings. All right. So it's consistent with the design. In general, we're finding that it's consistent with the design guidelines for the location, compatible with the architectural character of the city and neighborhood. Yes, and in particular, into its particular neighborhood and surroundings, And then its appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale is for its location. And then for, since it's sensitive to adjacent landmarks and historic resources, including itself, public reviews of the ocean mountains do not apply. Use of the open space and landscaping is appropriate. And then, let's see, do we have other exterior alterations, major alterations? So exterior alterations are being made to restore historic resources to its original appearance, or in order.
VIP alterations on East Thousand Oaks.
Oh, that's off the record.
Is that a condition of the project?
Yeah.
That's wild.
All right, in order to substantially aid in its preservation and enhancement as a historic resource, or as is. The exterior alterations are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. So in general, we're finding those are true. And then anything else, findings-wise, that we need to comment on? That's good.
Mr. Chair, for the size, bulk, and scale, is that the appropriate place to put that the FAR doesn't seem to be an impact to?
I think that was a separate part of the.
Correct. The FAR is separate from the project compatibility findings, but you could, I mean, it kind of depends if you want to phrase these comments as, because you don't need to make the findings right now, you could phrase them as generally the project compatibility findings and major alteration findings are met, or you could kind of break them down and go into them a little more. It's up to you.
Good. Okay. And so is there a?
I'll make a motion for an indefinite continuance.
Second.
With those comments?
With those comments.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Under discussion, any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik?
Yes.
Commissioner Uli?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Vice Chair House?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good job, good work.
Really appreciate the feedback.
Good luck
Moving
now that you guys
along,
square
just
footage.
It was a long meeting. You guys did figure it out.
Yeah, and then I gotta get bids and be like, how am I making this happen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the
I'm sure you
straight
fill it
wall
up.
will actually save a little money, so.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll fill it up with stuff. That's what I'm scared about.
To the chair, if you could officially adjourn
Oh,
the
yeah,
meeting.
sorry. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.